your family or anything like that, like I'm always like, we'll get that taken care of first before we start recording, and like that way we can spare the
Yeah,
audiences, you know.
that's like my pet peeve is the Florida might be the exception because it does rain here like every day, but
Mhm.
when someone says, "Oh, the weather here is," Illinois, the weather's fucking crazy. One day
Yeah.
it's 70 and one day it's 40. It's like
Mhm.
literally everywhere.
Yeah, yeah. Well, dude, we're recording now, and so this is a first. Like you and I have been talking about doing a podcast for I don't know what, maybe middle of last year,
At least.
something like that. Which I guess I should just introduce you first. This is episode I think 41 now, and so for those if you're not watching the audio, I'm sorry if you're not seeing the video, my next guest is TylerKrause. You want to say a little bit about yourself? You have Trueblox and a few
Yeah.
things.
Yeah, I guess I've just been doing bodywork since uh, pretty much my whole life,
Hmm.
and it's evolved as the years have gone by, and it's kind of evolved more into Trueblox now is a big focus of mine, but I've kind of jumped around some different shops and just yeah, the focus has always been bodywork and um,
That's been
yeah,
your main
yeah,
thing, right? Yeah,
yeah.
because I mean, on Instagram is where I saw you, first. That's kind of where we kind of got to know each other a little bit, and I think a lot of people see you, they know True Blocks, they've seen the bodywork, some of the shops you've worked at, but like before we get into some of that stuff, like I want people to understand you, like where you started and like the earlier beginnings and like what really got you into all of this. Like,
It was that honestly, I still don't consider myself a big car person, but I started kind of messing around with paint and bodywork in high school,
mhm.
and I thought of it kind of as a hobby. Like one of
Okay.
my really good friends, his older brother was into bodywork and paint and like mini trucks and all that. Matt Meyer, he's a great guy, and he started for some reason I just like was drawn to it, and he started showing me some things, and I'd bought a truck when I was 15 and just started I don't know painting random things on it and learning that way, and it never even crossed my mind that it could be a career path.
Hmm.
It was just a fun little thing I did, and as the years, oh, I guess there wasn't that many years in high school, but as time went by, it sort of evolved into understanding that it could be a career thing. And then I started seeing, that's when like American Hot Rod was on TV and rides and overhauling and all that. And I started seeing it as like, oh, this is a bigger world than just like the local car shows and like, you know, doing things on your own car.
Hmm.
And it just grew from there. And I went to Wyotech in 2005 and six.
Hmm.
No, 2006.
Which one?
The Laramie campus.
Okay. I did Blairsville.
Oh, okay. Yeah, yeah, and it just um, I still didn't totally know there. Like I had experience going into school, which helped a lot.
Hmm.
So it wasn't just learning everything totally fresh.
Yeah.
Um, and for a little while, I actually wanted to do. I didn't think you could just jump into hot rod shops. Like I
Hmm.
thought you had to have years of experience doing collision work and like get like a groundwork laid, and then like almost graduate to hot rods.
Yeah.
And so for a little while, I had my eye on a BMW certification class,
Hmm.
thinking that's like the path you had to take. And as it turns out, it isn't. And it's probably better I didn't go down that path, and like because it's two very different industries.
Hmm.
And um,
Oh, it's funny because
yeah,
like you saying that, and it's like the reality it is you can actually start sweeping floors in a shop.
yeah, 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 and it's not really how I saw it at the time.
Hmm.
Um, so I ended up they had a career listing thing there, and one of the shops I had already moved away. I grew up in Wisconsin,
Okay.
and I'd already moved once to go to school, so I was open to living anywhere, and I wasn't I wasn't contained by location, and there was a little shop in Illinois that had a job posting, and the city sounded familiar. It was Manteno, Illinois, and I couldn't really place why it sounded familiar, but it's where Rad Rides by Troy is, and that they had their ride show, and or it wasn't based from there, but he was kind of known, and I decided my brother went to school with my brother too, and we both decided like the shop wanted to hire both of us, so it kind of triggered everything because he did work for the shop we were at, did work for Troy in the early years, and it's a town of like 8,000 people, so we kind of dove headfirst into the hot rod world and got to know Troy a couple months after living there, and it not at all what I thought would happen as far as like the path to, but it's kind of luck, kind of like I was willing to work at this smaller shop. Just literally the reason we moved there is to be close to the people like Troy that, are leaders in the industry, and it ended up working out because you learn, the first environment I was in was that.
Yeah.
And, I didn't have to learn the wrong ways first and unlearn it. It was seeing that right away. So it's 20 years old and you're around those people. It's kind of crazy looking back.
Yeah, because I mean, the journey that you have, or that a lot of people will have, let's say 20 years in, I would say probably the majority of them are working at a shop that like maybe does collision and hot rods. And so like, I'm not hating on that because there's a lot of successes you can have, but at the level we're talking about, especially with like Troy and, these guys, like it's a different animal. And so you end up developing a skill set that like, I ended up in shops like that it was just like, just fill it, just, don't look too far into it, just, get it done, even if things are a little, weird, or not, I shouldn't say weird, but like just not right.
Yeah.
And so like you develop, if you're paying enough attention, you can see where the pitfalls in some of that are, but you may not, and you might think that that's the route. And so like, it's interesting the paths where you can go, and if you can recognize it, you can end up in a better spot.
Yeah, and it's this shop actually did both as well, but because of the location, and actually the very first person I met when I moved there was Bob Thrash, and he's like a legendary designer and car builder and fabricator, and it's like it was literally the first job I had like a week after graduating. And it's like you got Bob Thrash there starting to teach you some fab things, and it's like that's pretty unusual.
Yeah.
And it's for like I kind of understood then, but especially looking back, it's like that never happens. But it sets you down the path of like, to me that was the right way to do things, and it's not the environment a lot of people are fortunate to be in.
Yeah. So that was your first job out of high school then?
After Wyotek.
Or after Wyotek, okay.
Yeah.
How was, I definitely want to get into that part, but like your Wyotek experience, not that this is not an ad for Wyotek. I don't know, anybody there. I know campus is closed and all that kind of stuff, but like, you went in there with experience. Like, how was it, going through the process and the schooling and stuff?
I thought it was good. I mean, I know a lot of people, I don't want to say talk poorly. Like, I think people's expectations aren't what reality is. Like, I think people kind of assume you're going to graduate and like you should be this like well-rounded, world-class car builder that has all the knowledge. Where I don't think that's the case, or what should be the expectation. Like, in my experience, I don't mean like I couldn't build a car necessarily, but it was like I'd done some bodywork, some painting, some
some cool stuff.
Yeah, enough to have a little. You had an understanding of how bodywork and paint worked before like the teachers teaching you about it.
Yeah.
But I think it was great because you learn the basics of TIG welding, you learn the basics of fabrication, and like it kind of eliminates all the holes in your knowledge base. Like I've worked with people that don't understand like either how a cleaner works or what waterborne cleaner is, and it's like the school kind of like fills all those gaps. So you at least have, if you're learning in a shop alongside someone else, like they're not teaching you like everything. They're just teaching you as you go. So there's going to be holes in your knowledge. Or I thought it was good because it gave you a really good base.
Yeah.
And like from there you can grow. You can't, and it's 9 months. Like,
yeah,
9 months is no experience.
Realistically, it's like, and I know what you're talking about. Like people have their expectation, and it's like, no, this is going to be a solid baseline.
Yeah, it's a starting point.
Like it's the starting point, and then you put it into practice, and like the practice part is the most crucial of the whole, journey of doing what we do.
Yeah, it takes 15, 20 years to get what people think they're going to leave a school with.
Yeah.
And that's, I would say it's good. It's not necessarily cheap, but it's
a
little
foundation for you and stuff. How would you say, like, the trajectory, like, if you were to put it on a graph, like, you see your schooling, right, and you see, like, oh, here's my knowledge base and everything, and it's like maybe it's going up, who knows, maybe it goes down for some people, but, like, and then you go to that first job, and is it like a holy shit moment?
Yeah, I think the holy shit moment was, again, the timing was, I don't want to say luck because I don't think everything's luck, but there's some elements of luck. Like
luck, or the universe threw something at you, like it was meant to be. Like
the timing was completely crazy with everything. Like my brother and I moved to Manteno in April of 2006, and later that year is when they were starting the bodywork on the Riddler car that they did. So they had Charlie Hutton and Scott Snickloff, who also worked with Charlie, and he helped with a lot of Boyd projects, and like probably one of the most talented body guys out there, who isn't really known. He's known by the right people, but so you've got these people that I think October or November that started, and I think the holy shit moment was seeing how they did things, and it's like that's where the acrylic blocks came from, and like how to do gaps, and it's like you're watching, like you have an idea of how things should be done, just a basic idea, but then you see how this whole other world, and it's like that's the point where it's like holy shit, like I didn't know any of that, and it just, I think that's where it started taking off, and learning the bulk of it, and at least enough to show you things to put into practice and hone, and like I don't know if I do things exactly the same as that, but probably pretty close.
Yeah. So I mean, that's a big trajectory change there from the holy shit moment to like
and that was
expanding.
That was 6 months after graduating Wyotech.
Yeah.
So it's like you learn that right away, and there was the next year there was 2 weeks I spent with Charlie at his shop to just help with things, and like I don't say I thought I was good, but like I thought I had a pretty solid understanding of bodywork, and like I didn't even do much there, like basically bodywork, some parts, and it's like I pretty quickly realized the understanding I thought I had was very basic, and that was kind of another point of like it went up quite a bit.
So you were like like a lot of us have done, everyone's guilty of it. I've been guilty of it, but like you're just applying, like in the bodywork sense, like where people were just putting filler on.
Yeah.
With no thought. Like they're just like, oh, it's flat. And it's like, well, does that material need to be there? Like, and I don't want to get into that part yet. It's more of just the understanding and like where you were at, where you probably were like doing it a certain way and you thought this was right, and then it was like, then these people show you like, no, here's
and it was more like one thing in particular I remember about there is like I was pretty decent at getting something straight, but it's kind of where it ended, and I was bodyworking some garnish moldings, and like all the corners had to be made nice and straightened, and it's kind of the first time I had to bodywork a corner, and like I didn't know to like make the corner sharp first and then get it straight and then like put the radius back in it. I was just trying to bodywork something round.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, this is a whole different way to do things. It didn't even cross my mind. So that started opening up the idea of like different approaches to do things.
Strategy.
Yeah. And like it's like, oh, I got a long way to go.
Yeah.
And I didn't like think I knew everything going into that. Like
Yeah.
I don't think I had that attitude, but it was, yeah, it definitely opened my eyes of like, oh,
Yeah.
there's a lot to learn here.
The eye-opening moment's pretty great.
Yeah.
Because, like, if you haven't experienced the eye-opening moment, you're going to. And, like, that's, like, if you look back in your career and you look at, like, the key moments, that's definitely one of them.
Oh, yeah.
Like, you'll
I mean,
always,
it's a memory.
yeah.
This was 15 years ago, and I still remember working on some, like, I could picture myself exactly where I was. And,
yeah.
like, I mean, also luck. Like, I don't think a lot of people get to go to Idaho for a couple of weeks and learn from one of the best people that's ever done it.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's, you wonder if it's luck or if it was meant to be or whatever, like, I don't know. You also put yourself in these situations.
Yeah.
You could as easily have done one thing that changed that trajectory.
Yeah. I'm torn on the luck thing. There is an element of that because like it had nothing to do with me that I met those people, but also it's like I busted my ass in school and I worked hard and I moved. Like I didn't care about what the pay was. I didn't care about like I wanted to be there for a reason and was willing to do it. Like, so yeah, well, like if I just wanted to live in one particular place, like I've been willing to move across the country several times for those reasons. So it's like, that's, you sacrifice a lot to get somewhere like that.
That's like, I did an episode with Christian Sosa.
Okay.
And he's done a lot. Like he has experienced a lot of different things. He's well traveled and everything, and like he knows some great people. He's been able to work with some great people, and we talked about that in particular about like luck, because he would describe it kind of like that too. And I was like, yeah, but you're making the decisions that like help you move in that direction. So like how much of it is luck and how much of it is like you paid attention enough to go, this is the right path. And you followed it and it led you down these really cool routes where like one decision wrong, if you didn't, whatever you want to call it, whether the universe called it, whether it was like, I like to call the call for adventure, right? You can, this trip you coming down here is kind of the call for adventure, and like you're acting on it. You could have easily not have acted on it and been at home, done the same thing you do, whatever, which might be okay. But then did you miss out on all these opportunities?
Yeah, because it's led, every time I've done something like that, it always seems to lead somewhere.
And it's like you suddenly see doors open up that like you never knew would have been you would have been exposed to. It just happened.
Yeah. I mean, you have to be out there and do things for things to happen. Like, things don't come to you, I don't think.
Like, because like what you're saying, it's like the chances that you got to work with one of the best, fabricators or, whatever you were describing it as, like, that's an opportunity.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and to have the appreciation of I don't think I knew quite how lucky it was, or, like, fortunate, I guess maybe is a better word. But, I knew enough to, like, be willing to learn from someone like that and, like try to get information from them.
But it's also you being willing to take that information in. Because a lot of people maybe they get stuck on that, like, first success that they had, and they think that defines everything. And, like, but then a guy like that comes in and redefines what your thought of it is, and you have to be open to that.
Oh, yeah.
Because if you're not, like, you're going to be stuck in that spot forever.
Yeah, and to be honest, it's easier to do when you're around that caliber of craftsmanship because it's pretty obvious. Like wow, it's impressive.
Well, we had a conversation about this earlier of like, imagine you coming in and saying, no, this is how it should be. And it's like, do you even have the credentials to like say that?
Yeah. It's hard to argue when you're looking at the person's work and it's like, some of the best ever.
Yeah. So I don't know. I like that. The whole chasing those opportunities and like acting on it, because it's going to lead you down one path or another.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I mean, my view is like, especially if you're starting in the industry and you like, it's fine to like if you just want to stay somewhere and like you're fine with kind of just like if your goal isn't to be like to do as good as you can do, like if you're content with just whatever you're doing,
Yeah.
fine. But like if your goal is to go as far as you can, like you've got to like there's no pro athletes that just want to work,
Yeah.
you know, not put the effort in and stay in their hometown. And
Yeah.
like, you've got to be willing to, like, you sacrifice a lot. Like we're professionals at, you know, what you could probably call the upper echelon of the industry. Like you have to sacrifice something to get there.
Yeah. Yeah. So then you went from that shop, and you said you went to
Yeah. So I bounced around a little bit. There's one of the clients of that shop was a collector, and I ended up working for him with a couple other people, just working on his own cars, and it gave me some freedom to. There really wasn't a boss or anything to show you, so there was the ability to like experiment and like grow without someone, without some boss saying like, oh no, you got to do it this way. It's I was taking what I was seeing, like from Rad Rides and like all these other people, and applying it to what I was doing, and seeing what works and doesn't work, and did some fab work there. And I never got good. Like I realized that's not really how I think. It was always, when I got to bodywork, it always went a lot better than, trying to do fab work.
Yeah.
But it was enough to get a basic understanding of like I can TIG weld and do like minor shaping things, but nothing complicated. So I was there for a few years, and then I had an opportunity to go to Texas to Customs and Hot Rods of Andis. That was also a small shop at the time. That was same deal. It was another collector that had a couple employees, and I was there for I think 3 years, and my brother this whole time was working at Rad Rides, and they needed help with some projects and wanted to hire another body guy. So I mean, I don't know how you say no to that.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, for real. That's a huge opportunity right there.
Yeah. So the Texas thing was awesome, and I liked living there, and it was another really good opportunity. But like I had to go back to be at Rad Rides, and we got through a couple of projects. I wasn't there too long. Like I did some contract work with them, and they built that '56 Chrysler. It was like a peach colored Chrysler.
Okay.
I think it was like '08 that was done. Did a little bit of help with that on the on the side, you could say.
Yeah.
But then I was full time there after I was in Texas, and then after that I went to Roadster shop for a few years.
Okay.
And I think I was there about 3 years too, and that's when my brother opened his shop and was getting busy enough that needed more help. So
yeah,
we worked together for probably, it's hard to, time goes by so fast. Probably 5 years maybe.
That's a hell of a. I mean, just all the shops you named right there. Like there's not a lot of people that get those opportunities.
Yeah, and it's fortunate. It's and like within those shops, like I've worked on and off with, I shouldn't say worked with, but like Charlie's been someone that I've learned a ton from, and like he painted one of the projects in Texas, so like you spend time working with him and like seeing his process of that. And then we did a Suburban at a Roadster shop that I started there after the bodywork was pretty close to being done. We finalized some things, and like it's I wouldn't say it was done. It was into the bodywork process, might be a better way to say it.
Yeah.
So we finished that, and then I think I don't know if PPG sponsored that car because it was for Mr. Gasket, and PPG was involved. And
that was the green one, right?
Yeah.
With the surfboard on top,
yep.
you always see.
Yep. But part of that whole deal was they wanted Charlie to paint it, and which is awesome. So like it was another week of like working with him, and so it's like and there's been other people like that throughout that come and go, and whether you're going somewhere to help for a little bit and there's someone there.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's been interesting through the years.
And I keep saying surfboard on top.
Yeah.
It did have one, right?
Oh yeah.
I don't know if I'm making that up or not. So I do that sometimes. Like
no,
I'm mixing cars,
Yeah, and that thing had Neil Gerber, Jeremy and Phil's dad, built the whole. He didn't build the whole interior, but like the whole, like instead of carpet, it had teak wood floors.
Yeah. And
he built all that in his wood shop, and like that was a pretty special truck.
Yeah.
Especially with Neil doing the floors, and it was neat.
It was pretty badass.
Yeah.
I mean, that kind of contrast and build. I always appreciate stuff like that.
Yeah. Yeah. It was a full surf theme.
Yeah. Yeah. So you were at Roadster Shop. You're helping them out with some projects there.
Yeah, I worked there full time for a couple of years.
Yeah. So same thing. What about like that trajectory? Like you watch, again, if I saw a graph, you go from this shop and then it just keeps.
Yeah, and that was a good point. Like obviously their quality of their work is at the top as well. So I went from Radarides to Roadster Shop, and like the expectation is pretty similar. Radarides is, I don't want to say far more in the details, but like literally everything needs to be as perfect as possible.
Yeah, yeah.
And it like there's just one way to do it. It doesn't matter what the project is. Like you're gonna be wet sanding and buffing door hinges.
Yeah.
And Roadster Shop is some cars they'll take that far, but the outsides all need to be great. But you might not get as detailed in the jams. Like not every car's gonna be this top end like show car.
Yeah.
So that was another trajectory, because I had to learn to dial back the detail and get faster. So at that point, I had a really good understanding of how to do things, and it was practicing more and getting faster at them. Yeah. So that was a great setting to kind of blend the speed and efficiency with the detail. Because I mean, they still wanted nice. Like it's not like you're not cutting corners.
Yeah, we're definitely not talking about like spraying a car like there's sawdust in here and there's sawdust in it. We're not talking about that. We're talking about being reasonable with the customer of like, here's this person's expectation versus this person's expectation.
Yeah, they're ridiculously nice. Like it's just like not every car is a Riddler car, and it's dialing back a little bit from that, and that was a big trajectory too, because it was a lot more practice, and it's where I started getting quicker. And even looking back, like I still feel like I was pretty slow there, because it's it was 10 years ago, and
you're your process has changed too. You're a different person from when you were 10 years ago, and it's like there's all these other different things that play a role in your efficiency and all that. But again, we go back to you recognizing that. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And that's one thing I've learned. I don't know if it's really taught or if it's just a personality quirk that like it's pretty easy for me to look at everything. Like, I don't want to say I'm not happy with the work, because you have to keep going. You have to like kind of pause and like be proud of what you did.
Yeah.
But also, I think it's not a secret that everyone working on the cars can pretty safely say that no matter how nice it is, pretty much especially in the body shop, because you're seeing it, like they're all pieces of shit. Like, like where all the flaws are, where this went wrong, where you know where that little burn through is that had to be touched up. And they're all like that. Like no matter what it is. I mean, I shouldn't say piece of shit.
In this, nice I know what you're saying. Yeah, I think any of us that are doing this stuff know what you mean.
Yeah, from the painter's perspective and the bot, like where the problems are. Yeah. So it's hard from that perspective. Like you can't say there's always something to fix on the next one.
Yeah.
It's whether you see the paint doing something kind of funny and like, okay, so how do we do that? What do we change on the next one that one's just like slightly better? And I've always been good at like understanding like whether it's speed, like okay, I did this maybe it approached the bodywork in the wrong
Yeah.
order, and like I ended up having to do this section twice because I didn't realize what was going to be affected.
Yeah.
So it's always been easy to look back and like,
It's being less
like
myopic.
yeah.
Again,
Yeah.
I used that. This is the second time I've used this
Yeah.
word today, and I don't even know if I'm using it right. But whatever it is where you like focus too much on this, because like people will do that. They'll focus on this one thing and not realize that they just screwed this up over here.
Yeah.
And like that's really important for you to be like, eventually what you're talking about is like your skill set develops to you go from this, like this is what I see, to like this, because if I do this, this might look really good right here, but I just affected that.
Yeah. Oh
And,
yeah.
Trying to recognize that, and that you become better through that process.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I honestly think that's like, if you're willing to like critically look at, like I said, you have to step back and like appreciate, because it's a lot of work.
Mm-hmm.
Like it shouldn't be like dismissed that like all this is a lot of work, but
Mm-hmm.
like if you're willing to like actually critically look at your work,
Yeah.
which is honestly somewhat difficult to do. Like
Yeah.
it's but
The more you do it, the better
Yeah.
you get at being critical on
Yeah.
yourself.
you're
And
you're kind of going to learn everything on your own if you're willing to see a ripple somewhere and like figure out where it came from.
yeah.
Like, okay, how do we get rid of that?
Mm-hmm.
And it's going to lead you down a path but if you're not willing to actually analyze something,
Mm-hmm.
you're not going to adjust things. But if you're
Yeah.
constantly adjusting,
Mm-hmm. But I like I like where you were talking about going from Troy's to Roadster Shop, and like this one had a certain dynamic that this is what we do. This is
yeah, and
game plan.
and the process was like, that's one thing at a certain level. Like most shops I've been to,
Mm-hmm.
there's little differences, but like it's almost the identical process everywhere.
Yeah.
Like it's it's like you're doing the same thing, but it's like a different. Yeah,
I know what you mean. Yeah. Yeah. It's
still a different setting though.
Yeah, the setting changes. The process is like generally very similar, but then you're gonna have these little details like
Yeah.
these people want these details, but these ones might not, or we only want to apply this detail to this car.
Yeah.
But generally, you're using 320 grit.
Yeah.
Generally, you're using 100 grit. What does a gray Scotch Brite do? Like, there's a lot of general things that someone, even at a moderate level, they're pretty similar. Once you start, I mean, we're talking about two very high-end builders,
Yeah.
and like, then that's gonna have a different, I don't want to say echelon, but like, it's gonna have a different like category that has its own similarities.
Yeah. Yeah. It becomes a very small world at a
Mhm.
certain point, and
Yeah.
and that small world kind of operates the same.
Mm-hmm.
There's a reason the cars at that level look similar.
Yeah, yeah. But you went to that skill set, and then the Roadster Shop skill set, and I think you said you went to help your brother after that.
Yeah, and that was a lot more body work. So that was, we're working with different builders at that point because it's just body work and paint there. So it was, and Adam painted mostly.
Mm-hmm.
I sprayed some things, but not a lot. So it's like, that's when it like really turned to the body work, because it was like, it's almost all I was doing is body work.
Yeah.
Or sanding. Because it was wet sanding and buffing too.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
so it was like honing that even more, and like then you have to be fast, because granted it's not technically my business. It was him, but it's like it was just the two of us. Like money doesn't come from, like, you can't like you can't double the budget or something on something. So it's like you have to
you got to get it done.
Yeah, you can't screw up. You can't. There's no such thing as like, oh, we'll just repaint it.
Yeah.
Like, nope. Who's gonna pay for it?
Mm-hmm. Which that's a subject I definitely, we can get into that one, because I really enjoy this part. Is like, what people tend to do is they treat the shop like it's a hangout.
Yeah.
And like, partially, yes, that's okay in certain aspects. but like that goes too far in a lot of places. And it's like we enjoy what we love, like we love what we're doing. We love the cars we're working on, but our livelihoods still depend on this thing.
Yeah, it's a business.
So you still have to produce, you have to be efficient, you have to like, do all these things that help pay for you and help keep the doors open in the place that you're at. And I think people kind of lose sight of that, and they're just looking at themselves, and they think that some shop's making billions of dollars, which is like none.
Yeah.
Like it costs a lot to keep the doors open.
Yeah, body shops usually aren't the moneymakers.
Yeah, that's I mean, I think you and I've probably heard that on a few podcasts where they talk about the bodywork side of, how difficult that is for billing and stuff, and we'll definitely get into that. But
yeah.
It's recognizing that too. If you're a technician in whatever shop, like you have to stay away from the side of like looking at yourself only. Like you affect the people around you, and like you are the lifeline of whether or not like the jobs are going to be successful or not.
Yeah, and it's I don't know if there's enough of an understanding that whether you spend 4 hours redoing something, or something just took too long, or maybe you painted something that wasn't really ready for paint, then it's so easy to have the mindset of like, oh, whatever, we'll just repaint it. It's like, well, no, it's like at that point the paint's free, your labor's free, you're losing time, like everything starts to matter. And when you have the mindset of like that's kind of on you, that you eliminate, like when you almost can't make mistakes, like you're really forced to step it up when it's like kind of your ass on the line. Like you got to do it right.
You can make excuses for other things and other people in a someone else's shop, but when it's your thing,
the owner isn't happy just having to pay you to repaint something.
Yeah,
like you're losing money
when you're the owner.
Yeah,
what are you gonna tell yourself the excuse and go, fuck?
Yeah,
like there's no way. Like you're accountable to yourself. The thing is, people don't recognize that, and because it's someone else's business, it's their problem. It's like, man, you're affecting the whole thing.
Yeah. Well, then, like, you should. It's partially that. Like, that's definitely a big piece of it, but also like, if you're I guess you could call it sloppy, like that. Like, you should have more pride in your work. Like, you shouldn't be painting something that isn't ready to paint, for example. Like you should give a shit a little bit more.
Yeah. Kind of recognize the pitfalls of like, oh well, this is definitely not ready for body work, or I'm sorry, for paint work.
Yeah.
Right. And then recognizing that, okay, what do I need to do?
Yeah. And to be clear, things happen. Like,
for sure. 100%. Yeah. We're definitely not saying everything's perfect. No way.
There's plenty of like, how.
Well, okay. So here's a better example is like, that's my truck right there. If I screw up something on that truck and I have to fix it, right? It's my truck. No harm, no foul in a way, right? My livelihood doesn't depend on me, getting this truck out next week.
Yeah.
So if you go into it with a mindset of these customer cars and you treat them like that, you're never going to get anywhere. Does that make any sense?
Yeah. Yeah, and there's not a lot of people I've worked with that have that mindset, because of like that's something I've noticed as a common thread. Generally speaking, through some of these like shops that are towards the top is like it's pretty rare to see someone that is like has that mindset of like, oh, who cares? Like everyone's so concerned about like it's a craft to them, and like they're perfectionists, like so
they're hard on themselves.
Yeah, a lot.
And that's where you have to like, sit there and realize like, what if I was paying myself to work on my car, and every time I mess something up, it sets me back.
Yeah, and it costs you double.
Yeah, on your own car. You would definitely screw up less at that point.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So like, why is it any different for like a customer car? You should sit there and go, I don't want to pay to redo that. I don't want to, or not even pay. I don't want to set things back just because I did not pay attention to this thing.
Yeah.
And that's where it's like, that's where people have to recognize that in themselves. And again, that's another subject we can definitely get into. I'm noticing as you talk about this stuff, you go from this shop and you built a skill set there. You go to the next shop, you build a skill set there, and you go to this shop and you build a skill set there. All of them have something different. All of them have a similarity.
Yeah. Yeah, and they're all at different. I mean, it's kind of how it worked out for me, but they all kind of serve a different purpose, and they're at different points of the career. And if you're able to like put everything together, it makes a difference.
Yeah, yeah. So once you went into your guys's, you started helping Adam, which we're talking about your brother Adam Krause.
Yeah, he owns the refinery.
Yeah, yeah.
So we worked. It was kind of a combination of freelance work and him. I mean, it was 95% working with him.
Yeah.
But it's when I started traveling a little bit too, and it's also when I started. Technically I was on my own then, and it was starting to think about like how to grow more, and that's the point when I started. It crossed my mind to sell sanding blocks once, because at that point it was like, I think it was basically just AFS blocks and blocks on the industry.
Yeah.
And it's like no one I've worked with, AFS blocks are still used, they have their place, but like everyone was just had acrylic blocks.
Yeah.
And they're all homemade, like all of them. And it was a common thread through most people I worked with is, of course this is what you use. Like it kind of was common. But you couldn't get them, like you had to make them. So like working with him, it made you realize like, okay, you're dependent on yourself. So like, how do you grow? And that's when I decided like helping other people and like starting to share all this, because it's like I've been fortunate to work with who I have and the projects, and like I've learned a ton. And that's when I decided to start sharing things.
Yeah.
And because, at any point through those 10 or 15 years, like you could call anyone you worked with and they would tell you anything. Like no one held anything back.
Yeah.
It was a pretty tight knit community of like, we're all here for each other. And didn't really see that out in the world. So it's like, what's the difference between like, why wouldn't I like pay it forward and help other people?
Yeah.
So that's when I just started deciding to like do that. And I think doing that helps you grow even more, because you're like, it forced me to think through how I do things and like kind of define it better. And so it's like a ton of practice with bodywork and trying to explain it, which is another animal.
So different, like you have it all in here, and in here, like,
it makes sense up here.
Yeah, you can like, if it was a book, you would think that you have it all written down and it's verbatim and you have it all, and then when you actually try to put this to the book, or whatever you're gonna do,
it's lost in translation.
You're like, oh man, maybe I should have, maybe I wasn't thinking of this exactly. That's not the right way of saying that, or to portray it, or you start thinking about the different scenarios of something you were working on and be like, it didn't apply to that. Let me not do that. And then you hone whatever your thoughts were, start to get sharper.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's made a pretty big difference, to be honest.
Yeah.
Trying to explain something. But it was.
What time frame was that? Was that like 20?
Probably 2015 and probably 2016, I think.
When you started doing the blocks and stuff like that?
Yeah, the blocks started in the end of 2016.
Okay.
And I think I started for my brother maybe a year before. If that. Yeah, about a year before I started doing that.
Okay.
And it just slowly evolved. And
so what, in your time period working with your brother and traveling, like how'd that change the whole dynamic? Because like you work previously at like shops, an establishment, like, and obviously you're going to different like establishments, but you're not stuck in one establishment. You're moving.
Yeah, I think it was better for me because it's such a small, like, Adam and I do things pretty much identical. Like, we work together really well. So it it was good. Yeah, it was a good thing for me because like, you weren't fighting some of the elements of a shop, which some of them are good and some of them are bad. Because I mean, you get a group of 20 guys together, there's bound to be
butting
some
heads and
some version of like two people want to do it two different ways, and it's both could potentially be right.
Yeah.
But then it's like, well, who would like? But
Which is a route.
Yeah, but like working there, it was just like there wasn't that. It was just one way to do it.
Yeah.
And it served me well. And then it like, yeah, the change of scenery sometimes, I guess, going to other shops, and the change of pace is nice.
Yeah. It had to have like expanded your thoughts on things too.
Yeah. Oh yeah. 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 And the practice is like, cause I wouldn't stay. So like we helped the Ring Brothers on four projects, and it was mostly going in for like a week to try to knock out as much of the bodywork as possible. And to be clear, like they had bodywork started, and like it wasn't like coming in as like a hero and like, we'll save you guys. Like, they're great. Like, but to go somewhere for a week and work 90 hours and all you're doing is bodywork, and then you go back home and all you're doing is bodywork, and you go somewhere else, and like, to be efficient in a week when you're somewhere, like, you've got to learn to be fast, and like you can't like screw around and like waste time doing something. Like you like very quickly learn the order to do something, and like, because you can't leave somewhere and like, well, I got the fender and door done in a week.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
You got to be able to go somewhere and like the sides and the gaps are done. Not just a door.
You want to have real results.
Oh yeah.
Like, you want to leave knowing I made an impact.
Yeah, you're useless otherwise.
There. Yeah,
like,
yeah.
Why would you go somewhere if you can't? Like, they could have done that.
Did you feel guilty every time you left a place? Like, man, I could have done more, or were you pretty satisfied?
Yeah, especially. So like there's several projects where my brother and I went together, and we were able to like get the car roughed in, primed, and like blocked into like 220 or something in a week.
Yeah.
Which that's an unrealistic timeline. Like, don't be fooled.
Well, you say both of you, and it's like, was it really a week?
Oh, no.
You know, it was a week's time span, but like.
But also, that's not jams. That's not like that's a tiny bit of the project. But when you go somewhere and you don't, like, when you've done that a few times, and you go somewhere and you can't get the car in primer and you leave, you're like, shit.
Yeah.
You didn't get enough done.
Yep. But then there's outside. I'm sure there's like outside sources where you like show up and a car isn't quite at the stage it needed to be.
Yeah.
So then that sets the whole time frame behind, and you're only going to get so far unless you stay extra.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I'm sure the dynamic of every time you guys show up somewhere, it's a little bit different.
Yeah.
And that's not saying anything bad. It's just what it is.
Yeah, and that's something I've learned is like to doing like freelance work like that, to try to pair yourself with someone that has a similar process, because if you go in, like, you're not really useful if you get a curveball. If you're going to spend the week like redoing metalwork, like that's like the setup should have been better.
Yeah.
Like, you need to be able to come in and like, all right, we'll spend 4 hours in the morning and get the gaps tuned up a little bit to where I want them, and like moving forward.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it could pretty easily be bad if you go in blind, not knowing what you're expecting.
Yeah. I have a friend, I told you about him before, the hat that I'm wearing right here, Josh Everett, and he does fautique. So he travels to different countries. And like, that's a challenge that he has, is like, he'll try to prep them into like, hey, you need to have these things prepared before I show up. And there's certain shops, 100%, they are on point. They get everything prepared. because what he has to do, he has this time frame. So if you don't get those things ready, you can't work in that time frame. And so like it's a challenge for somebody who's doing freelance like that.
Yeah, it's definitely a big hurdle.
Was that? I mean, how was going through that whole process and being freelance? Like, that's a whole other skill set that you end up developing on there. Would you say that that's like maybe? Did you learn more about business going on that side of things?
I don't know if I would say. I mean, technically yes, but I feel like that's sort of misleading to say because I'm not running a shop. Like running a shop's an entirely different.
For sure.
Like, that's something I don't want anything to do with, and it's a whole different thing. Like you do learn to deal with people and like be more comfortable going into a new setting.
Yeah.
And it's really just a skill set. Like I found my skill set to grow more just because it's just repetition.
Yeah.
Like you go in and do body work over and over and over, and it's like if that's all you're doing is roughing in cars. But I mean by roughing in, I mean like basically getting ready to prime. Like I'm not saying like it's right.
Pretty much like you could say here when I hear that, I think you get the car roughed in, maybe you primed it, maybe you got it just before, but the shop that you're helping, they can handle the rest after you leave.
Yeah, like the valances might need to be done yet, and the roof might need to be done, but like the side, like all the body lines are dialed in, the gaps are dialed in. It's like what I did is ready to prime. Like I'm not leaving things undone.
It's kind of focusing on a really technical aspect that maybe if somebody's calling you in, they're like, hey, we don't have time, or we don't have the skill set for this, but can you get this part done, and then we'll get the rest of it taken care of.
Yeah. And these shops are capable. Like I'm not saying
for sure.
It's
well, that's why I said like people get overwhelmed. Maybe they have 20 cars, but they don't want 2 more cars sitting there, and it's like they're better off calling you.
And a lot of times it's deadline things. Like it's what do you do? Hire another body guy to get through a deadline, or just hire someone for a week to help?
Yeah,
like that's probably the case more than anything, is just like to get a little extra hours into something, and like the shops themselves are capable, but it's like just to help you get over the hump with the project is a big help.
Yeah. I mean that takes a lot. I mean, it's this first part of the podcast, like the point of this is to like show your journey of like where it all kind of materialized.
Yeah. And probably like if you want, it's going screwing up the timeline a little bit, but like there is probably a point at the very beginning that is like a pretty defined memory. The guy that I initially learned from, Matt, he isn't in the industry now. He owns a grounds not landscaping, but
I know you're talking about
a grounds maintenance company.
Yeah. So they probably have a lot of people doing different
but like back in the day, he's like 5 years older than me. But he's very good at body work.
Yeah.
Like he just doesn't do it professionally. So the truck that I bought was a Ford Ranger, and like I wanted to paint flames on it. I was 16. And so he showed me how to prep it. He didn't want to, like, prep was super important. We weren't scuffing it. It had to be sanded to flatten the paint. And he showed me, like, I hadn't done this before. So he showed me how to do it. And so I sanded it. It was ready for the next step. So ready to lay the flames out on it. And I remember calling him and saying that it was done. Like, and he wanted to look at it before we went further. And I was like, trust me, it's good. And he's like, if you'd say so, but I'm not painting it if it's not right. So my brother and I laid all the flames out. Like the whole thing was done in a fine line.
Yeah.
And he came the next day to look at it, and it all had to come off. No. And it wasn't good enough. So he did not care that what work it was going to be to like redo all the artwork. It was just, it wasn't good enough. But it like, I don't know if, I didn't realize it at the time, but it was like that set the way he approached things. Like it was a $3,000 truck. Like who cares?
Yeah.
But it was like there's a right way to do things, and it doesn't matter. Like that's it.
Yeah.
I think accidentally that was probably the best. Like it's probably where it started. Is like oh shit, like there's no excuses.
Yeah.
Like you just like we're doing this right, and that's it.
Yeah. And it didn't matter what time it took. It was like,
yeah,
this is gonna look like shit. Like I don't care. Like we are going back through this.
Yeah. Yeah, you didn't do it right.
Yeah.
We're doing it right. And it might have been terrible. I don't know.
Yeah. It might have been okay. Who knows? But he saw something that he was like, no. We're going to keep trying.
It was more the mindset of, like, do things right.
Yeah,
There's no, like, prep things right. You just don't half-ass it.
Yeah. See, I like that because, like, that kind of goes into the whole, like, how giving up affects you, and maybe that's not the best case of like giving up. In a small sense, you could say if you go whatever, that's good enough. That's maybe a form of giving up.
Yeah,
but like,
well, that's not an acceptable answer.
yeah, and whether it's like giving up in the sense of like I'm walking away from this. There's ripple effects, and then there's like a hurricane that comes in and just destroys your life. And I think that like giving up is something that like will destroy your life.
Yeah, because if it's the way you live your life, it goes a lot deeper than sanding paint.
Well, here at any point you could have, at any of the shops you were at, you could have just given up on something. Maybe somebody came up to you and like, no, let's redo that. And you're like, fuck this, I'm out of here.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh yeah, you can't. It's. I think part of that is it's like you can't argue with the people telling you that. Like if you're in my situation anyway, like if you got some random dude telling you that, like maybe there is an argument to it. But like when someone like Troy Trepanier or Charlie Hutton's telling you it's not good enough. Like, what are you going to do? Tell them, like, yeah, that's what you think.
Yeah,
like, it's like, well,
you don't have the credentials to say otherwise.
Yeah. So that's helped tremendously because you can't,
Yeah, I think that's one of the biggest things that people need to be really careful about, because I know I could have given up a lot of times. I give a lot of credit to my dad because, like, there was a lot of times that he was just like, no. You're fucking redoing that shit. That didn't come out right. That looks like shit. Like, no. Like, and even if it was something that was just so painful to try to go back through, it was like the only option is to see it through. Even if it's not as great as you wanted it to be, at least you made it to that, to a certain line.
Yeah, it's important in everything.
Yeah. Because it's like a moment I always go is like that trajectory. Like I said earlier, some of these decisions you made could have totally spiraled you off in this other way, but you kept to the decisions that were like true to you, and that were you knew it was right, and it just kept producing something else. And I mean, listening to your story of like where you came from. People wish they had that.
Yeah. Yeah, there's definitely an element of fortune in it.
Yeah.
Which I don't dismiss, but it's a shit ton of work over the years.
Yeah,
dude.
yeah.
Like
that's a pretty awesome setup. So then let's go into the Trueblox, so because I think unless I'm missing something.
Yeah, no, we're about there.
You were with Adam and you guys were doing, traveling, going to shops and stuff like that.
Yeah, so we did a lot of that together. Now I do that more on my own. But it was kind of like I wasn't his employee, but like we worked together basically full time, but I was still a contractor and had my own business.
Yeah.
And the Trueblox thing started sort of as an accident. Like it's crossed my mind in the past of like what you could make of a block to like, because we were using masking tape for handles on blocks, and it crossed my mind of like, I wonder what you could use to like make this a product. But that's kind of all. It's really all the thoughts ever led to.
Yeah.
And like it really wasn't in my frame of mind to like, oh, this should be a business someday. But it wasn't until I started explaining things to people, and the question came up pretty often, like, well, what blocks do you use? And I would just explain, like, well, you have to get plastic from McMaster or this place called Tap Plastics, which I would still like highly recommend. Like, it's like if you don't want to spend $1,000 on a set of sanding blocks, like they cut polycarbonate to order, like and to size. Like you can get raw plastic that shows up at your door, cut to size. Like,
which, by the way, that's something I've always appreciated about you on this is like you have a product, but you're also like, hey, you can make this yourself.
Yeah,
like
well, I mean, I could go to bed at midnight instead of 2 in the morning if people make their own stuff, make your own blocks. Like, I mean, I make my own blocks too. Like when you're at a job, like you can't rely on like a kit of blocks. Like they cover 90% of the bases, I guess. But like, I'm always like the amount of times, like I've been at Goolsby's quite a bit lately, and like the amount of McMaster orders I've placed for plastic to cut up and make my own blocks because what I have doesn't cover what I need. Like you have to me, it's a requirement no matter what. But like, it's simple. Like I'm not selling magic.
Yeah.
Like and it's a piece of plastic is what works.
Yeah.
But yeah, like everyone would ask like, what blocks do you use? And like there was nothing on the market. Like now there's like 20 companies or something. Like it's wild how many people do it now, but there was nothing.
We got to watch that kind of just materialize.
Yeah, and I had no idea. Like I started explaining to people like to get the plastic, and these are the sizes I use that I tend to like, and just use tape. Gaffer's tape works great, and just like make your own, and you can have a stock of plastic, and as you go, you can just like cut. Like if you have a 4-foot rip pieces of like 2 3/4 inch wide plastic, you can just like grab a piece, and if you need a 12-inch block, like just chop off a 12-inch section, and you've got a block. And then a light bulb went off. Like it beat more so to like point to something for someone to use. Like you're helping people by putting the right tools in their hands. And I think I don't know when Lucky Matt started.
I think it was around the same time.
It potentially was a little bit before. I'm not sure. I just noticed a couple months in, I started seeing those too. And like, it might have just been that it took that long to see. But that's when it started. I just started selling wet sanding blocks because it was an easier starting point, and to figure out how to like, I'm not a tech person. So like, how do you take orders? How do you ship them? Like, what do you do? Type everyone's mailing address in?
I did that for a little while.
Like that. So it's like, it took a little bit to figure it out. And that's really how it kind of started on an accident of just people asking like, what blocks to use.
So let me go back a little bit. When were you first exposed to the acrylic block?
2006.
Okay.
And it was way before then.
Was that at Roadster Shop? Was that at Troy's?
That was at Troy's, but like while I was working at the first shop. That's when they started their car. That's when like I first met Charlie and Scott and them. And to be honest, I don't know what Warren at Troy's was using at the time. He may have been. I'm not sure, but that's really when I was like, oh, this is what people use. And so that was 20 years ago. And it wasn't new then. Like that's what he's been using. And even through the whole process, like I don't have a patent on my blocks, but
you can't even patent them. I'm pretty sure
it'd be a waste of money. I mean, because
there's an old patent, but it's
So there's this old, I forget what they were called. Charlie actually had a couple of these blocks. They were,
oh man, that's a relic now.
Oh yeah, they were. It's expired, so this would have been it's probably a 30-year-old patent at this point, and it's basically an AFS block with different size acrylic under it. Because I was like, I happened to come across it like right when it expired.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh shit, like I'm maybe infringing on this.
Yeah, yeah.
But it's expired, and it's like, so this is an old, like, this is nothing new.
Yeah.
And now it's, pretty common.
So I was exposed to them. Ron Cohen, I mentioned, we were talking earlier about him. Good friend of mine, love the dude to death. He exposed me to those. And I think it was the Black Chevelle we were working on at a time. And because I remember, like, using, just the typical blocks that were out there. And, like, I just couldn't get a certain result. I was beating my head on the wall, like, man, what can I do for this? And he exposed me to those. But it was the same. It was I don't know if I want to say it was an industry secret. But
it wasn't on purpose a secret. Like, no one was holding it from people, but it wasn't well known.
I'm like, I used to think that it was like, and the more I talk about this stuff, the more I go, maybe it was just a matter of like, these people were just concentrating on themselves and just it never got exposed like that.
Yeah. I mean, it also might be like the audience, like the people I've met never, like, no one cared if you knew what they were using.
They were like, oh, it's just a block. Like,
yeah.
Here, cut it.
Yeah, like no one tried to hide it from anyone.
Yeah.
It was just, they weren't concerned about, it was pre-social media too, so, there was no way to share it, but even they still don't, like, it's just, they keep their head down and they work. It's not hiding things from people, but it's we're just doing work.
Now, I have met people who were like, don't say anything about this. This is like a, old guard kind of protecting kind of thing.
That's,
I've been there.
I don't think that's the way to go about things.
No. Have you ever heard of like balsa wood?
Yeah. It's soft though. That's the only thing I don't like about it.
I've heard that. I've never used it. The weight saving is what, like, I was like, oh, okay. If you're working on a car for an entire week, I'm sure maybe the weight helps you a little bit. And I never really knew how well it works for like.
Yeah, I'm sure it would have its place. Like maybe it'd work good for wet sanding clear because it's softer, but also it's wood and like.
Yeah.
What does wood do when it gets wet?
Yeah.
Turns to a different shape. But
sorry, I got off topic on that one. So
no, it's good.
You were talking about the Trueblox and like, I'm sorry, not Trueblox, but your exposure to acrylic blocks.
Yeah.
And how that kind of materialized there.
Yeah. Yeah. So I had before I started Trueblox, like I had a lot. Like I probably had 80 blocks. Like it was stupid because I don't know if it's an addiction or what, but like it's more of a curiosity, I guess. Like I'm always like scrolling through McMaster and like thinking about what might work better and like different plastics, and like I would just buy plastic and like just cut it up, and all of a sudden you've got like a ton of blocks. And but with all that, like I had pretty much every different thickness of plastic and like 1-inch increments and like duplicates of them. So like I just realized like, okay, like it's a preference obviously, but like what blocks I never touched.
Yeah.
So like when I decided to start selling them, it's like I knew exactly which ones I wanted to sell, because it's like I've got at that point like 15, maybe not quite 15 years, but 10, 12 years of like I've been using these, so I know what works. Like like a 1/2-inch, 10-inch block is almost useless. Like I'm not going to sell it. It doesn't work. So it was kind of just like, it was never planned. Like it was literally just people asking, and I realized like, oh, this could be a thing.
So then, again, going back to the whole like, oh, you can make this yourself, some people might find that as like, well, you have a product, like sell your product. But
I don't care.
Everyone's scenario is different.
Yeah. I don't expect like the genuine goal from the beginning is to help people. Like there's plenty of work out there. Like I can stay plenty busy doing freelance work. Like there's a reason I didn't sell I stopped selling them for like 2.5 years. Like it's kind of just it's a part of the business now, but it's I don't depend on it necessarily.
Yeah.
So it's like if the goal is to help people,
Mm-hmm.
like it's not genuine to say like, no, you need these.
Yeah.
Like, the reality is like,
Mm-hmm.
there's other ways to do it. And,
Yeah.
and to be super transparent, it seems like the more you help people,
Mm-hmm.
the more sales go up.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's not like a disingenuous thing.
No,
but
not at all.
It's kind of funny how it's like, if you're just kind and helpful,
Yeah.
it works out.
Yeah. I mean, the way I look at it is, yes, you can make them. You can make blocks fairly easily. You know, if you have certain tools, it could be a breeze. And you can make exactly what you need for whatever shape you got. But some people just don't have the time.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, I mean, it takes me like 4 hours to make a big set of sanding blocks. And
Yeah.
I'm not even cutting the plastic or making the rubber, obviously.
Yeah. Because you got to think of it like bandwidth at the end of the day. And it's like, am I going to spend half a day building all these blocks?
Yeah.
Or am I going to just order it and keep continuing progress on the thing that I'm working on?
Yeah. Oh, I definitely see the value in it. But yeah, there's also the part of like, okay, I need a 2-inch wide block.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Just sometimes or you need one cut at a weird angle, like just
swip it up.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's a good way of looking at it. You know, I think you're right. It probably helps you sell more at the end of the day because people are like,
yeah, that's not a tactic at all.
No, not at all. It's a genuine aspect of it because you're literally telling people, you can make this.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, you can. It's plastic.
Fairly simple.
Well, like nowadays, there's so much marketing around sanding blocks and like this allure that it's like some brand is some magical block, and it's like the reality is, it's just the material. Like acrylic and polycarbonate just bend right, they flex right, they want to stay straight, so you're not, you can't change the shape of them, and that's why they work.
They won't conform to things.
Yeah, like they'll flex, but they're like making nice radiuses all the time. So it's like, it's not the brand that is working, it's the plastic.
Yeah.
And you can get plastic at Lowe's. Like some of the first blocks I made, you can go to Lowe's by the screen door department. They have like a whole section of acrylic. Go buy some.
That they're marking up at like 12,000%.
Oh, it's ridiculous. I was there like a couple weeks ago and I looked at it and it's like, it's very expensive.
Yeah.
But
if you look at the metal prices in there, it's unbelievable. We're accepting that.
Yeah. But still, like if you're in a bind and you need a block, you can buy a 1 foot square piece of plastic at Lowe's for $15 and you've got 10 blocks.
Yeah, for sure. That's how simple it can be.
Yeah.
But then what about like usability? Because you hear this where people think like that block is going to be what saves the day. Like, how do you feel about the individual?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, you definitely like you could almost say I learned with them. So it's very like second nature of like what to use. But one of the most common things I see is people just grab like the biggest and the thickest block. Like, oh, this thing's a beast. So like, I need to get this straight. So it's like, that's not like, cars have shape to them. Like, like they need to be able to flex, and they need like, they're specialized, like Durablocks are pretty general purpose.
Yeah.
And you only need, well, you could probably get by with like 5 of them. But like when you get into like the acrylic type of thing, like they're so specific to what they do that it's like, you can't have an 11 millimeter wrench and take a whole car apart.
Yeah.
Like it's kind of the same thing. So it's like, you have to understand like how thick the block is and how it flexes and what you're sanding. And like I almost always have like 10 sanding blocks out to sand one little area. Cause as a shape changes, you need a different block.
Yeah. So then strategy takes a hold, and like I tell this to people all the time, like that acrylic block, is great, but you can fuck up the entire
Oh,
car
yeah.
with that same block.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I mean, what's been your experience with people learning how to use the blocks and everything?
Overall, it seems good. I think it's good and bad at the same time. Like, I honestly don't get a lot of feedback, which is probably good. And the intent with the information is to try to explain it. So it seems like overall it's pretty good. Because I try to preach, like, don't just grab the big block. Like, that's not, like, even wet sanding, like wet sanding paint, I feel like is almost a bigger error of people. Is they just grab like the thick, like, 1/2-inch block, and they're just like, we need to get this paint flat. It's like, and then they'll ask, like, well, hey, the paint's still ripply. It's like, well, and almost always the recommendation is like, grab a thinner block, like, just like, it's maybe counterintuitive, but like it works better because it's following the panel. So I think wet sanding is where people probably get it wrong more often than bodywork, because I think it's more awkward with bodywork. Like, you're trying to sand a round fender and you got a block that doesn't bend. Like, but wet sanding is like, people want to grab just a hard block and like get the shit straight. And like usually when I recommend like there's 1/8-inch and 1/4-inch blocks in the wet sanding set I sell, and like, if I say, like, put the 1/4-inch one down, like, I hardly ever use that one. And go down a size, and it usually works out.
Well, it's like the fundamentals, like, there's some overlap between like body working and like, doing the paint work, and then it's figuring out where the crossover ends, and being like, well, these fundamentals of this body work is like, in a perfect world, I shaped the car already. Why do I need to try to shape the car again? But there's a small piece of it. It's the paint. And the inconsistencies in the paint itself. So there's a small crossover on there, and then that crossover kind of leads away of like, once you've cut this out, it's kind of smooth sailing after this.
Like, and I think the problem is it like, you get so precise with some of the things that it's rare the bodywork is like, whether it's the bodywork itself or just the shape of the panel, if there isn't a subtle shape in it. And like, if there's just like a slight ripple in the bodywork and you're using too hard of a block, it's like you're missing the clear is going to be like fatter in the ripple, and like, you're telling yourself your bodywork's perfect, and it's rare, like, for anyone. So if you use the little bit more flexible block, like, at that point, it's like, you're done with bodywork. Like, you're not straightening the body anymore. Like, sure, you need to block the clear straight, but like, if you're skipping over a shape in the body, like, you need to follow that when you're in the clear and get the clear flat, and get rid of those like fatty spots.
So like, maybe like a reverse curve might be an example of that. Something where,
especially if they're subtle, like, they're real hard when they're subtle, because it seems like a straight panel. And it's not. Like, I remember when we were at Troy's, we did a 56 Buick, and the quarters they're a little bit different than Chevys. Like, the quarters have more shape to them. Like Chevys, you can make the bodies kind of one uniform shape. But the Buicks, the quarters like puff out more. So the front half of the quarter is like slightly goes, like, has a hollow in it, kind of, and it's very difficult because it's over like a 3-foot span that's like not positive.
Not immediately noticeable.
Oh, you really can't see it, but when you're trying to get the clear flat and you're like struggling, it'd probably be easier now. That was 10 years ago. Like, I've learned quite a bit since then, but
you'll see it right away now. Like, most people, like, the terminology of like, car's got to be flat is like, most cars are not. Like, 99% of cars are not it's not a Tesla Cybertruck where it's like right angles and every panel is like a flat thing, and even those cars aren't flat.
They're not even painted.
They're not even painted. But like, you know, there's so much shape to the car. Like you can't take, let's say a Bronco, like a '60s Bronco.
Yeah.
If I took, and you're a fan of doing this, is using like the aluminum extrusions.
Yeah.
If you took a perfectly straight extruded aluminum piece and put it on the side of that car, let's say a steel piece where there's no flex.
Yeah.
That's still, you could say that's flat. Let's assume that that's considered flat. You put it on the side of this truck right here, you'll realize that there's a shape that goes from this end to that side.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's what I like about the aluminum is like
it has the give.
Yeah, and like you can't, I don't care who you are, you can't run your hand down that bedside and know if it's straight. Like
you're gonna miss that subtle, that longer.
Yeah, there's no way you
flow.
can feel a 8 foot long subtle. And if there's a variation in that, like that's what the aluminum's good for, is like it shows all that.
Yeah, yeah. So it'll give you that. Let's say the panel is somewhat, you know, just a really slight arch or slight curve, whatever it is. It'll show you the inconsistency that keeps you from having a proper transition into that.
Yeah, because the idea, like, you can't use like literal straight edges, like you'd be building a box.
Yeah.
But yeah, it needs to follow the shape, but show you where it's low.
Yeah.
Or high.
Yeah. That's where I appreciate, you know, and you and I have talked about this guy before too, Pete from Automotive.
Yeah.
His standpoint comes from the car design world, right? So like clay modeling and everything like that. And Pete, for those listening, for those watching, Pete he lives in Australia. He's got a company called Automotive, and they do body shop supplies and stuff like that. And they have their own blocks too.
Yeah, they're great.
They call them splines, and they're based off of clay modeling. So it's using the spline to look at the shape of the car, and you can use it for sanding, but you're also like you're looking for exactly like you're talking about with the aluminum extrusions is finding where the shape is lacking. And so like I enjoy that, you know, you see the overlap in the fundamentals that you've developed and the fundamentals he's developed.
Yeah, it's kind of just different angles at them.
Yeah.
As cars are never designed like panel to panel. Like designers, I mean, there's purposes, sometimes cosmetic, for panels to be there, but like they didn't design the doors to dive in, and like it's kind of like the car has a shape, and then the panels are put in the shape to function to be a car.
Yeah.
So it's like when they're manufactured, like we had talked about this already, like it's how they're designed. Like so if you bring the car back, like when you're bodyworking it, like you're kind of making it as it was intended, and like getting rid of all the manufacturing defects.
Yeah, at that high level.
Yeah,
basically.
And that only applies to certain things.
I mean, in a perfect world, it'd be great, you know, to be able to put those fundamentals on every car.
Yeah,
but the skill set's not there for everyone.
Yeah, and like for a little while, I was working on restoration, like with road scholars with the high-end restoration stuff, and it was all Porsches, and it's like you can fix some of that because the cars get beat up over the years, and like they weren't like as like if you have like a survivor car, you really can't say that like this is exactly how it is, because it's like it's been through 70 years of hell. Like
like flexing.
They're probably nice when they were newer, but you can't make a multi-million-dollar restoration like over restored and look like it's honed out of a piece of plastic.
Yeah.
Because it has to be authentic. So and I used to kind of view that differently. Like I was too stubborn to like everything needs to be perfect. But it's like you can't, like when you're working on like historical, like actual like concourse restoration stuff, it's some of the same principles, but it has to be approached a little bit differently. Like it drives me nuts to look down a car and see the door edge dive in, but kind of has to on some of them.
Yeah, I mean, if it's a true restoration.
I'm talking about like actual like like not an excuse for the car that's supposed to be straight to say, well, that's how like no, this is like retaining a $2 million car needs to stay a $2 million car, not look like it's been bondoed to death.
Well, I think we're talking about two things that, like, there is a story there, and it's maybe, I hope I'm saying this right. Back when coach building was real, and then production.
Yeah.
And production ruined all of that.
Yeah.
Because production said, I don't have time to make those panels. So you ended up with panels that look like this.
Yeah.
Because there's no time for it. Like, they're trying to make money. And it's getting stuff to move through the process. So, like, sometimes I look at, like, what we're talking about here, and I'm like, oh, that's the clash.
Yeah. Yeah. And the two industries kind of, like, the further into all this stuff I get it, like collision world and the restoration hot rod world are two big divergences. And then, like, at a certain level, like, the hot rods and the restorations diverge again to, like, two pretty separate approaches.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, it's like, it's a whole nother podcast
for sure.
Restoration stuff. Like, we won't go down that road. But
that's one I would definitely love to do an episode just talking about those fundamentals, about, like, where these roads, like, separated. Because for, like, a while, as I watched our industry, like, explode in the last, like, 15 years, it's like you watched coach building techniques and the equipment just really flow through, you know, the custom world, to where, like, instead of, like, MIG welding these panels together, people are TIGging them, and they understand why, you know, it might be better to TIG weld this panel together, and how they can use a pull max, or how they can use these other techniques to, like, actually shape a panel to get it. Let's say we might have different opinions on this one, of, like, maybe they get the metal work 60% there. You know, maybe they get it to 80% there. I don't know why I said I know we agree on this.
Yeah.
But, like, where's that at in the industry as a whole? Are most builders or restoration shops getting the panels to 60% in the metal work, and then you replace that with body work?
I think it depends on the industry and the person.
Yeah.
And the results required. Like, I've found it to be, like, I've worked with, not with, but, like, after some, there's a lot of really good fabricators out there, but some of the, probably the best in the world. And, like, the metalwork's phenomenal. And even at that, the cars still get, like, completely mudded, and when they get in the body shop, you're still moving gaps around, and, like, but if you want, like, a perfect Rither car type thing, like, you have to do that. And I'm sure there's some metal shops out there that are capable of that.
Yeah.
But if the demand is, like, this is what the result of the paint needs to be, like, I've found it exceptionally rare. Like, I also understand you can have a car that's 98% the way there and skip all that shit. Yeah. And it's really nice. Like, it's not saying, like, you can't do metalwork, not like these cars would still be amazing if you skipped some of that.
Yeah.
But, like, to take it that 2 or 3% further of what the end result needs to be, of, like, what Raderides is doing, it's like, it's another ball game. And usually that requires skimming something.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's where I go back to, like, the whole where things diverted from, like, coach building techniques and understanding metal. And, like, I would say there's a big portion that at some point in our industry, because of production, the understanding was the metal's only going to get to this point, and nobody's going to work it out any more than that.
Yeah.
And so then fillers were applied and all that stuff, and the industry went this way. And I think what we're seeing now in the last 15 years, I could be wrong, maybe more, but it seems like as a whole, you're seeing people with more of this equipment, more of the understanding of having a planishing hammer and how to work that panel out, versus, like, somebody MIG welds a quarter panel in, and they get it, and you know where the weld line is and it looks like this, and they're
Yeah.
like, just put filler on
Yeah.
that. And that's, again, everyone's scenario is different. I'm not trying to beat people up for that, but we're watching people use more of these techniques that
Yeah.
straighten that out.
Oh, it's definitely improving. And yeah, I would agree with that.
Yeah. It's I think we're kind of going through a little renaissance in the industry right now. Like, we're watching the creativity like increase dramatically, the technology like increase, and original techniques that were lost are coming back.
Yeah. Yeah, I would say so. And it's a little hard to gauge because social media is out there, but and it has it. I mean, I think everyone's aware there's like good and bad things about it. So I think you're seeing more, but I think because this better work is out there, I think it's like other people are seeing what the level is and like growing to that level.
Yeah.
So I think it kind of feeds, like it sort of feeds itself because, you know, you can see what Levi Green is doing in Texas and like, oh shit, that's amazing. And when you're out in wherever you are and like you try to not compete with it, but like you see where the bar is and it's like constantly getting raised.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Or in the past, if you can't see other people's work, your bar isn't pushed up as much. I don't think.
Well, I guess then it exposed you to, like, I had never seen a pull max for most of my career. I was never exposed to it. I never saw it. I never saw it in a shop. I never knew what a power hammer was for a lot of my career. Like, I was never exposed to it. Then you watch a video and you're like, holy shit, what's that?
Yeah.
And then you start understanding, like, oh, these people are shaping a panel. These people are doing, you know, whatever, you know, things that you might have never heard of. And now you're exposed to it and you're like, well, I want to do that. And I want to try that. Now you got a whole other skill set, you know.
Yeah.
That's fixing some of these other issues, you know, or improving the quality. Let's put it like that.
It'd be dreamy if the metalwork got to a point where it eliminates bodywork. I would be in favor of that.
Yeah. I mean, that's kind of the goal in a way.
Yeah, it's not good for my business. But
yeah. Still got to have that car sanded.
Yeah.
You know, and you know, that's, I mean, I hope we see more, a lot of the equipment and, you know, a lot of the coach building techniques that we're seeing more of, and how that's helping with body work and like the quality level of things people are fabricating and building panels and that kind of stuff. How much does the body work dictate how body work and metal work, do they work hand in hand? Is this something that they dictate each other?
Yeah. It's through you can look at the metalwork through two lenses, I suppose you could say. One would be, you know, there's a ton of incredibly talented fabricators, and one way is like seeing it as panels, and it's easier to build, you know, a panel. But then when you incorporate it into the car, like at the end of the day, we're building cars.
Yeah.
So that panel has to work with the car. So I think as this evolution grows and like it kind of seems like the bar keeps getting raised with, you know, as people get better, it all improves. So you know, as a metalworker grows, you're seeing the panels that are being built being incorporated more into the car. So I guess what I mean by that is, you know, if you were to build a quarter panel or something, the work might be amazing, but it might not work great with the body, you know, with the rest of the body, like the door and the fender.
Yeah.
So from a body guy's perspective, you know, I'm seeing it as like how that whole entire shape has to work together and look right when it's painted. And the fabricator is looking at it generally as like, oh, we're building this wheel flare maybe, and focused on just that.
Yeah.
And it's probably amazing work, but like if that whole section of the quarter that he's making doesn't really jive with the shape of the door and the rest of the car, like the body guy has to blend all that together.
Mm-hmm.
Or what I think what we're seeing happen is like some of these coach builder tactics are growing and coming back, and this bar keeps getting raised. I think you're starting to see, like we had talked about, the splines and which is shapes. I think you're starting to see all those shapes actually being incorporated with each other, and like seeing it more as a car, like a coach built car, more so than like, hey, I built this badass like wheel flare, whatever it is.
Yeah.
And yeah, I definitely think, because at the end of the day, like if the car has to look right painted, it, like, someone has to do it.
Yeah.
And the body shop can only do so much.
Yeah.
Like some things get cut up, but it's like you're not going to rebuild a quarter panel.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You have to
work with what's been provided for you.
Yeah. I mean, there's within reason you need to do things, but generally speaking, it's like you can't, like, it's going to have to get filled.
Yeah.
But yeah, as we see the metalwork grow, which is amazing, all that's evolving in the right direction, I think.
Yeah, and I want people who are more focused on body work to like really understand this concept, because if you understand that the metal work is you guys, they're hand in hand.
Yeah.
So, like we're talking about, if your quarter panel doesn't really jive with the door, and you have a 1/4 inch difference between the two, okay, well, either you're fixing that in metal or you're making up for that in body work.
Yeah.
It has to be one or the other, because you can't force. If you try to force it, they're gonna look.
Yeah.
They're not gonna look right.
Yeah.
And so, like, and I'm using my hands. If panel to panel, you can. If your panel's this high, well, whatever is my highest spot is gonna now become my ground level.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. That's a good way to say it.
You're looking to bring these panels as level playing field as you can. And if you understand that concept, it's not to say that every car, I mean, in a perfect world, we want a car that, like, the metal works perfect. Every panel lines up. That'd be amazing.
Oh, I can't even tell you.
Good luck. That's a handful of people capable of that skill set. And the knowledge hasn't been put out there enough for people to start getting to that point.
Yeah.
But if you can at least see the pitfalls, just like when you're using the extruded aluminum to look, you're looking at that and you're recognizing, here's a massive high spot, or we can call it a stretched out part.
Yeah.
Maybe the panel just so stretched, it's blown out. And so now, instead of just swiping that whole side, you can at least recognize, like, let's drop this down, and maybe it's a shrinking disc, or you use heat, whatever it is that you're going to use to shrink that down. At least you've recognized, here's a big crown in my panel that doesn't need to be there. Yeah. And now I can bring that down, and you're going to make your life easier just by doing that.
Yeah, and even taking it a step further, and like you were asking about kind of how the metal and bodywork relate to each other. Like I said, I'm certain, like, there's people that are incredible at metal finishing things, but the one advantage of having at least some knowledge of how all the metalwork works is, like, understanding, which I think is actually an underrated topic, of weld seams and flat panels. That even if it's not oil canning and it seems nice and you can bodywork and it's strong enough, there's a pretty high likelihood that weld's going to move around. No, I shouldn't say the weld's going to move around, but if it's not stretched back out perfectly to the rest of the panel, like, it's going to expand and contract differently. And like when you've got a panel or a car that's like dead straight and the paint's flat, and like you see super minute movements will put a ripple in a panel. So the amount of times that you could use this as an excuse, but it is also real, that like that was straight, but now it's wavy. Even if it's like a slight ripple, like it's probably a weld that wasn't hammered out correctly or overstretched. So when it changes temperature, that's moving different than everything else.
Mm-hmm.
So having the metalwork, somewhat of the metalwork background, you can like, you know what's going on. Like, so when you're working over a weld, you kind of know like what the risk is and like what to look for.
Yeah.
And or if you're fighting a spot, like there's cars where you'll fill the same low spot 3 times and it keeps coming back, and it's like, well, there's probably a repair there and it's moving.
Yeah.
And like knowing what's going on is valuable, because it's not just like just putting mud on it doesn't always fix it.
Yeah, yeah, and that's recognizing where some of those pitfalls might be, because like I'm sure you've dealt with like MIG welded panels,
Yeah.
and like somebody leaving most of that weld there, and like how, like you're saying, things move now. I don't know if I'm saying the right thing, but like the tensile strength or something is different inside that MIG weld, and you left all this extra material, and so now you're talking an 18 gauge piece versus a 12 gauge piece because there's all this weld there.
Yeah.
And like that's going to expand and contract. And when people, the most extreme case is the quarter panels that just get tacked.
Yeah.
And then you see it. You see the line that shrinks back because there's no fusion. It's just an open space with filler in it. But then you see the welds, the tacks.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, you'll see everything.
On a painted car, you'll see exactly where it's at. And that's the extreme form of the expansion and contraction.
Yeah.
And there's more stuff going on there for sure.
Yeah. But that's a good way to paint the picture of what it's doing.
Mm-hmm. So then that you scale that at a smaller scale to what you're talking about, where like instead of seeing that line, you're seeing a wave in the panel.
Yeah.
And you can't explain, like, why do I have a wave in this panel?
Yeah,
and it keeps coming back.
And like I said, it can be easy to make that a crutch and just say, the metal's moving. Mm-hmm. It's a chance that bodywork's not straight. Mm-hmm. But it is real sometimes that like you can watch a panel go from, if it drops 15 degrees or 10 degrees even, it'll be wavy. Then it'll warm back up. Like, it doesn't take much. Mm-hmm. Maybe even 5 degrees is enough to do it.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden it's straight again. And then if it's cold in the morning, it'll be wavy.
Yeah.
It's like something's happening with the metal, and it's just, I mean, it has to be the hardest part of fabrication, is like getting that dialed in, and like that's not even knocking the work, because it's incredibly difficult to get that part right.
Well, and I'll throw this factor in there. We're also talking about a high level.
Yeah.
The stakes are always higher at a high level.
Yeah, and I guess that's a good to throw in there. Like, everything I reference is like some of these top shops where it's like the bar is high, and it's
the margin for error gets so small, because like when you're talking about flattening out a car with 600 grit or 800 grit, whatever it is, and you're spending all this time, that clear coat is as flat, as smooth, highlights look amazing, like all that stuff, right? The second there's a ripple like you're talking, you're going to see it more obvious than a car that has a factory texture.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's the unfortunate dichotomy of it all, is like the nicer it gets, the worse things get, because you see, like, the nicer the car gets, like, you see everything then. So, like, any minor error is highlighted, because, like, if everything's flat around it, like, all you see is the problem.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so then, like I said, the stakes are higher.
Yeah.
Because then even having to go backwards that might set you back 20 hours for something like that. Or where we're talking about a weld seam, if you're at the bodywork stage and you're finding this out now you have to dig all of that back out, go back into the metalwork stage to work this area out. And, like, that's a big hurdle.
Yeah, it's easy to want, like, when a car starts the bodywork process, to just jump into the bodywork, because it's like you're moving on to the next step, and it's easy to maybe get ahead of yourself, but like, you have to get the metalwork right, because it happens sometimes. You have to go backwards, but like it's not ideal.
Yeah. That's why I think if we can put the mindset for anybody listening, you have a shop, your metal guys and your body guys need to be best friends.
Oh yeah, yeah, and even the like the other side of it, not even dealing with shape and expanding, contracting, is like pretty much all the cars that we're talking about have panels made for the engine bays and like all that, and like giving room for the materials too. So like it might look amazing for a panel in bare metal to be tight against the firewall and the car support and looks amazing, but where does the paint go?
Yeah.
Like by the time you bodywork and straighten out the firewall and all the flanges, like there's no room for material. So
Yeah.
so like that's the other side of where if the metal guy understands bodywork, which some
There should be a crossover.
yeah. Like if you're working with a metal guy that has done bodywork and knows, like you're getting a way different product because like he or she knows that like the filler and primer and paint need to go somewhere. So like we're gonna try to predict how much room they need.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But that's tough to do in metal because you want things to be like fit perfect in metal. But the reality is, it's got to be painted.
Yeah. Yeah.
Even if it's not getting body work, like you still need room for growth.
Yeah. I mean, that's an important fundamental that if you can apply that, I don't even think you have to have fancy tools. You can mitigate a lot of issues, in both processes that way.
Yeah. It eliminates a lot of surprises in assembly too.
Yeah, because it's almost like you see these, again, body and metal should be best friends, but then like metal and assembly, which you're kind of both because you have to put panels together and all that stuff. So you are an assembler, but if you have dedicated assembly people, like they're going to know that, oh, this panel is going to have a problem. These things aren't going to meet up. But so should the metal person, right?
Yeah.
So you're probably a little bit of both. But then the transition from body to paint, the paint's also going to know things that, hey, this needs to be prepped out a little bit differently. There's a lot of crossover that if the painter knows about body work and the body work knows a little bit about metal, and it's not that you have to master it, but you can identify a lot.
Yeah, I definitely think it's some of the more talented people, it seems like they're specialized in one thing, whether it's body or paint or whatever it is, but they have a basic knowledge and skill with it all.
Yeah.
So like I don't know. I'm sure there's plenty of people that are just generally good at a lot of things, but I don't know. I'm pretty convinced like spending the time to specialize in one area, but still having a well-rounded knowledge. Like if you know nothing about bodywork and paint, you're a fabricator, probably an amazing fabricator, but like if you're building a car, like you should know the other steps. And the same with interior. Like if you have an understanding of what the interior guy needs, like you're probably gonna build a floor different than not having a clue.
Yeah.
So yeah, it definitely all comes together.
And that's important to like recognize, for anybody who's doing this kind of stuff, because like I said, it's the pitfalls. I look at that and it's like you're going to do all this metal work, but then your panels don't match up, and again, you can help each other.
Yeah, and like the probably the most common thing is like just door gaps, where the metal shop will spend the time to gap something without the working with the body shop of what exactly needs to be done, and the edges are almost always too low. So it's like it gets to the body shop and you have to move the edges around, and like you're regapping it anyway.
Yeah.
So sure, it might look better in metal, but it could be done once and put them at the right level and you're done.
Yeah.
As opposed to two people doing it.
So we've talked about, your past, the places you've been to. We're talking about, we talked about Trueblox. We talked about, acrylic, tools, metalwork, all that stuff. So now I really want to get into, because I think all of that kind of adds up to like customer expectations.
Yeah.
So like we can sit here and say, well, this car should be metalworked flawlessly, right? Not everyone can afford that. Now, as people get better, I think we'll see these prices tighten up.
Yeah. Yeah, because the
You
less
know?
time you can spend on it.
Yeah, and so I think you'll start seeing that, become more affordable if this information gets out there more, and people start working on the techniques and they start again working together to make this process flow better. But at the end of the day, you still have a customer who's like coming in and they want X amount done, and like what you're gonna agree to. With all this experience you've had, you had to have like come up with your own thoughts on like, when I talking to somebody, like here's what you're gonna get out of what you're asking for.
Yeah.
What are you paying for? How have you kind of developed that for yourself when you're talking to people?
So I think for me it's so there's a mindset I have that I've somewhat been, you might be able to call it luck, like we were talking about earlier, of between working for collectors and I mostly worked for people that have had the patience and expectation. So I've been lucky to be able to learn.
Mm-hmm.
So there's one track you can go down of like, well, the customer's only paying me for, I don't know, we'll call it 15 grand.
Mm-hmm.
That's a little low. We'll say 20 grand.
Mm-hmm.
Materials are expensive now. But say the customer has $20,000 to spend. He wants his car bodyworked and painted.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a lot of time. So you can say, well, if we want to get paid, we can just quick bodywork the panels, paint it, put it together. It is what it is. Out the door for $20,000. Mm-hmm. And it's not wrong. It's the better business practice because you're really not losing money. The problem is, though, if you want to achieve the upper levels or like keep growing, mm-hmm. and you want to get that better work, you're not going to get hired based on that work. Mm-hmm. So like no one's going to look at a car that maybe the paint's nice, but the panels don't quite fit right, and it's maybe not wavy, but like each panel's bodyworked separately, so you like it. It's just a big difference.
Yeah.
So someone that wants that upper level isn't going to go by you saying, well, trust me, I can do better. Mm-hmm. Like, show me then.
Yeah.
So my mindset, I've been lucky to be able to execute it, is like, not that it doesn't matter what the customer is paying, but mm-hmm. there's one way to do it, no matter what the budget is. Mm-hmm. So the outside of the car still has to get bodywork and like sanded and painted, and all that still has to get done. So maybe you do almost nothing to the jams, but like there's still a bar for like what the level of work is. Mm-hmm. And maybe that means eating a ton of time. Mm-hmm. But if you can do a couple cars that you might break even if you're lucky on, mm-hmm. but all of a sudden you have work that's like top notch, that's when you start growing. Because at some point you're going through a learning curve. Like you're not just magically one day some customer is gonna come in and say, I'm willing to spend $100 grand on bodywork and paint when you haven't even done anything.
Yeah.
It's like you have to learn the process, and if you haven't done that, like you're gonna waste a lot of his money mm-hmm. on learning how to do it nice. Even if you're capable, like you're still gonna waste time. So like you need to. The customer really shouldn't pay for that learning curve. Yeah. I don't think.
Yeah.
So like maybe it took you longer to get it straight and flush than it should have, and maybe you eat those hours and you do the job for 20 grand, but the guy's getting what looks like a $75,000 body and paint job. Mm-hmm. And sure, he got a killer deal, but guess what? Your work is out there.
Yeah.
And it can hang next to the pros. Or not the pros, but like the...
Yeah, I know you mean, yeah.
Like, you can bring it to Detroit or Columbus or wherever you want to bring it, and it looks as good as the top cars.
Yeah.
Well, you almost have to do that, I think.
Mm-hmm.
What I also understand that's if you're running a business, you can't just say like eat a bunch of hours and it'll all work out. But
you're always going to give more than what the customer is really paying for. Like, and I'm not saying give it away, like give everything away, but you want to reasonably exceed their expectations.
Yeah. And even I think there's a misconception. Like I don't want to speak for any other businesses. But like I think there's a misconception that some of these big shops just have these incredible, crazy budgets. I mean, sure they're high, and this isn't a broad statement, but there's a lot of shops that eat a lot of hours in the body shop. Like it isn't what's portrayed online. It's like the level of work is there, but like
portrayed online, nobody shows it.
Yeah, it's not just a blank check.
Yeah,
like you're working in budgets, you're working in like you don't have the time, and like some of that detail you see in the when you say like holy shit that's nice, like that really wasn't paid for. Not all the time, but like probably more often than like people just see these cars that are like high end and think like everyone just made a bunch of money on it. It's like
it's not.
The body shop probably ate shit on it.
The reality of a lot of these high end builds is someone will hear a number like $500,000.
Yeah, it's not much nowadays.
It's pretty easy to break down $500,000 on a build. How much was the chassis? Yeah. There's a chunk. How much was...
Shout out to Roadster Shop.
Yeah, shout out to Roadster Shop, which they actually, man, they have some great prices on a lot of the... This is not an ad for them. I've worked on a few of their cars. I enjoy them. I love seeing them, but they have some... This truck, eventually, that's the route I want to go with it. But anyways, that's a big chunk. You know, if you think $500,000, $200,000, probably a better number to talk about with some of those things.
Yeah.
You and I have seen people who do like a one-piece billet grill. That's $20,000, $30,000 right there. Chunk, right out. Take that out. That's just the grill. What about that transmission in that thing? You maybe $8,000, $10,000, whatever. How crazy are you gonna go?
Yeah.
The engine that you have in there, $10,000, $12,000, $13,000. You'll start watching that $200,000 number shrink really fast, and by the time you take all the parts uninstalled, just buying the parts, that $200,000 number doesn't look as good as looking at $200,000.
Yeah, and it takes no time to fly through like a bodywork budget. Like if your shop is say $80 an hour, which might be, it depends where you are, I guess, but and you have 500 hours, it's a $40,000 job, and like that's 500 hours is tough at a certain caliber. Like that gives you 100 hours to rough it in or to bodywork it.
Yeah,
it gives you like you don't have a lot of time. 100 hours of sand and buff it correctly.
Yeah.
Then you got to do the bottom and the engine bay and the interior.
Door jams, all that
like
stuff.
500 hours is gone very fast, and that's $40,000.
The inside of a bed.
Yeah.
You know, like again, you start looking at all these different aspects and you break them down and you separate from them for everything. Labor is going to take up a lot of time.
Yeah.
And the parts are just as expensive. So now you're talking, let's jump to that $500,000 mark. The parts are probably even more expensive than the $200,000 one we were just talking about. You know, now you're talking about a set of, I don't know, EVOD wheels.
Yeah.
You know, you're talking whatever. I mean, there might be on the $200,000 job too, but you know, who knows? Maybe they went with Detroit steel wheels. You're under $1,000 for, a set of wheels for that. Great wheels, by the way. Love those guys. Great people. But also, I keep saying it's not an ad. I just know a lot of these people too. You and I have mutual friends with a lot of these businesses. But those numbers start to really change drastically. we can name a number of like crazy custom builds that are maybe in the $1 million mark, or higher. And we know what parts are in there. You have a full carbon fiber body, you have one-off carbon pieces, like those take a massive chunk in the whole thing.
Yeah, for sure.
And you start watching the labor chunk, you're like, whoa.
Yeah. Yeah, and even on those, I mean, you tend to get better budgets for paint, but like you still, it's rare you just get a like, hey, whatever you want.
Yeah.
It's still like you still have to work within
An expectation,
yeah,
right? Like, how are we going to achieve this quality?
yeah, and even regardless the budget, like you still need to be as efficient as possible. Like you can't just say like, oh, the money doesn't matter, so like we can take our time. Like that's not
realistic.
No, like you still like that time needs to be spent on like, oh, we're bodyworking the chassis now because the budget's huge. So it's not just you slow down on the bodywork. It's like that all needs to be fast.
Yeah.
The expectation grows. So it's like, oh, now we're bodyworking jams and we're gapping the inside of the doors and all the radiuses on the chassis need to be perfect. And like you're still back to the like you better hustle and get this right.
Yeah. And I say all of this, and like I struggle with these things myself. Like I don't want people to have the wrong expectation of myself, thinking that I've accomplished, those things. I haven't. Like I've been around people.
Well, this is a conversation about the ideal. Like this
it's observations. You and I have both worked on some great builds. We worked with people on projects, and we get to see observations on these things. We've discussed this same subject with the same people.
Yeah.
And so, you start building that up inside of you, and you start going, well, maybe I can apply this for something that comes my way. Or people that are listening to us, right now, maybe they didn't experience it, and they see our observations on these things, and they can apply it, for themselves. I'm working on these things myself all the time, and a lot of these pitfalls, I've fallen in them myself.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, me too. I mean, the way you learn them is you go through them.
Yeah. And, like, now I want to get into, like, that same subject is looking at yourself from, like, within. Like, people don't really, it's easy to blame games. It's easy to say, oh, this is the problem, that's the problem. And, like, one thing I really enjoy about what you post a lot on Instagram is, like, wanting to be better.
Yeah.
Like wanting to prove, like not prove, wanting to have better results each time.
Yeah. Yeah. I honestly think like you could take away all the, it's maybe too broad of a statement to say like you need to know things. Like there needs to be skills that you have, but like I really genuinely think that like as a person, like I think as a person is like how you are as a person is underrated. And it's more than just body work. Like you have to, like there's areas of life where, might not be as important to you and you can like kind of slack off on, I guess. But like the whole growth idea and like you kind of have to think that way. Like you want to grow as a person and like you can't expect your profession to grow if you're not of that mindset. So like I think that's one of the strongest things that like if you're obsessed with being good at something and by saying being good at something really just means like you want to grow as a person.
Yeah.
And if you're looking at your work that way, like that's like you can teach you all the skills you want, but like if you don't really desire to be better, like it's like that's really the key to anything.
Yeah.
And I like personally I think that translates to more than just like our profession in cars. That's just
that's universal.
Yeah, it's a way of life.
Yeah.
Like you can't just flip a switch when you go to the body shop and like, oh, I'm gonna be great here and then not give a shit about everything else. Like I've found myself it's difficult to grow and change perspective, but like you really have to, and like yeah, just put work and growing as a person.
Yeah, because we talked about this earlier, and it was like the talent will take you so far.
Yeah.
If you can't grow outside of that, and like the talent will, that's great. You can do a task, or there's something that you enjoy doing, and you just focus on that. Well, if you can't get along with the other team members, if you make it all about you, which tends to happen, talented people can get lost in themselves and forget about the people they work with, and not recognize like, well, I affect that person.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it's a dance.
Yeah. And like, I think that's another aspect overall that we need more of, is like people recognizing like it's not just about you, especially in a team setting. It is all about all of you guys and girls coming together to reach whatever goal has been like discussed, whatever your mission is, whatever that is. Like if you don't have the mindset of that, you need to be gone. Like you can't be in that place. But within that, it's like, it's you. When I listen to your story and all the things, the places you've been at, we're missing a lot in your story.
Yeah.
There's times that I'm sure you wanted to just quit and be done with it, or be done with people, or I'm not going to do this anymore, or I'm going to stop halfway through this, and you didn't.
I'm going to work on my own now.
Yeah. And it's things like that where you're like, you could have quit earlier on and not experienced the shops you were at and tried doing Trueblox or the book or whatever it is. You could have done all these other things, and you could have missed out on all of that experience that would have helped you with writing your book.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, and even like the idea of like, I don't want to say dealing with people, that maybe doesn't quite sound right, but like,
like everyone they'll understand.
Yeah, like I don't think you should like put up with something that isn't right. Like I don't think you should just ignore things and like push through. Like there could be valid things. So I think there is a point to move on, but I think you should like be happy with how hard you tried, and like try to see it from the other person's perspective, and like really see, like, did you really try to work together? And if it's time to move on, like, great, do it. But like I've grown as a person, and like looking back, like I really try to think like, where did I screw up? And like, where did I come across as like, oh, I can kind of see what, like, maybe why something didn't jive very well, and like take that and try to adjust on the next thing. Because you can't just say like, oh, everyone around me sucks, and like, what's going on? Like maybe it's the way you're coming off, and like it's difficult to do, and like it's a growing process. So it's not like saying like nowhere near perfect. I don't think anyone is, but I think the important part is to like try to take lessons from whether it's the skills or the personable side. Yeah. And like the team building side of like reflect on it. Like where can I improve? And like try to see, like, take yourself out of it.
Yeah. I mean that you will stunt your growth by being about yourself, or not willing to take in new information and adapt to a situation, and just take a whole new approach at something.
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
And that's where I think a lot of people just, you need to look inside, I mean, the amount of people I've talked to throughout my life who like, they're just blaming other people.
Yeah, that's easy.
And that's
easy to do that. Yeah.
And like, you don't even hear yourself being the problem. And I've been guilty of it myself.
Yeah, I was saying, same category as like, this isn't like, I'm sure I've come across as not intended many times.
Yeah.
But it's trying to notice that and do something about it. I think is what where the important part is.
Yeah. It's like the, where people even think like, oh, the shop's making all this money and all this stuff. And there's a reality to that.
The owner just isn't telling you that he couldn't bill for you for 20 hours that week and gritting his teeth and trying to be supportive of you.
Or they ate 200 hours in body work.
Yeah.
Because.
Oh, it happens a lot. Like that's common. Like, name your shop. It's happening.
Yeah. And it's I see that main problem is people not looking inside, and like maybe you are right about some things, but you gotta also look at yourself and make sure that if you can really look inside and admit to yourself, like, I either have this, maybe it's not all me, maybe there's 20% that's my problem, and I screwed that up at that 20%. Like,
you still play a role in the situation.
You play a role in that,
and you have to figure out what that role is.
Yeah,
or was.
So some of that stuff, like we're talking now. When you wrote Trueblox, I'm sorry, Trueblox is the blocks. When you wrote Elevated, which you just came out with that book recently. You've been working on it for a few years. If you want to intro the book a little bit.
Yeah, it's actually an idea I had, I don't know, when I started, kind of when I went on my own, so it probably would have been like 2016-ish. It's been an idea I've had, which I thought of it back then. I should put something together to put out there, like more formal. It's probably good I didn't write it then, because I don't think the information has evolved, so I'm kind of glad I didn't follow through. But it was something I started, and every time, I don't know, it was a challenge. So I felt like I kept coming to a roadblock with trying to write it, and I just realized, like, I need to pursue this, because it was 9 years ago I thought of it.
Yeah.
And I didn't want it just to be someday, or I could have, or I should have done that. And I just went for it. And I don't know how long it took to actually write, like, once I started, but it just came from, like, realizing I feel like our industry, like, if you look at other industries, there's a lot of education out there and resources. And, like, I kind of feel like our industry is pretty far behind, to be honest. Like, I know there's classes and, like, there's things, but, like, there's really nothing, like, if you're working at, like, a certain level, like, it's really the only information you have is who you know.
Yeah.
And, like, who you can ask questions to. There's no, like, formalized, like here's a resource.
Our industry has no standards.
Yeah, no. The
standard is whatever shop, whatever they kind of came up with for themselves.
Yeah.
And sometimes that's good. A lot of times that's bad.
Yeah.
But without standards, how are we really pushing the limits of some of this stuff, longevity-wise or quality-wise?
Yeah. Yeah, I just felt the need that, like, it should be out there, and I've been fortunate who I've worked with, and I'm been doing it almost 2 decades now, and, like, I feel like I'm at the point where it's like I can pretty confidently say that this is a good, pretty proven way to do it. And not just from me, like, this is people I've learned from, and this is, like, information that, like, I didn't come up with all of it. So, but it's pretty tried and true, and it's like a time to see if we can evolve the industry a little bit.
Yeah. I always see, because obviously we both went to, school, so we're technically educated, right, at a basic level. And, like,
not sure what that means.
Yeah, well, here's my example. I've given this one before on the podcast. Okay. Is, like, when I was taught about, like, metalwork, and they talk about hammer and dolly, like, that's all they say.
Oh, yeah.
It ends right there. I could be wrong. Maybe there's something that I didn't pay attention to. I don't know. But for the longest time, nobody explained to me what shrinking or stretching was. How is that not in the book? that, to me, if that's not in the, like, I'm not talking about your book.
Yeah.
I'm talking in school. Like, I have books in, from my schooling and stuff. They never explain those things. So how are you going to tell someone to use a hammer and a dolly, and they don't even know that they're stretching a panel, or that, what's the crown on your dolly doing? So
yeah, it's more in depth than just smash these two things together.
Yeah, are you creating people that are just overstretching panels, which I would probably say is likely. But that's pretty important, and
sure.
again, I hate that I said that. Made it sound like it was your book. I'm talking
it's
about
not there either. So
yeah,
you're not wrong.
but you talk about shrinking discs. You talk about just different techniques and things to look out for.
Yeah,
that's non-existent in these books and in other books out there that I've seen, and those are far and few in between. On top of that,
yeah, it's almost strange how little there is.
Mm-hmm. So like, how do you move forward without those fundamentals?
Yeah,
you're creating people that are probably messing things up more than they are really helping things out.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah.
For a simple thing.
Yeah, and if you're like that kind of goes back to the like what we were talking about with kind of biting the bullet with the time.
Mm-hmm.
Some of that goes to you're wasting a lot of time doing things not right. I shouldn't even say not right, not efficient. Like in the book I write about, like I've played around with like a lot of different grits with sanding primer, for example, and clear, and like it's not like I started doing it the way I wrote about and like that's that. It's more the line of like, all right, we have budgets, like that's a real thing. We have a quality standard, and the way you meet the two is like if the guy has $20,000 to spend and you have to sand the primer one more time with one more grit, that's a portion of that budget.
Yeah.
Like you don't have an unlimited checkbook. So the more of these steps you can back up, like eliminate
Mm-hmm.
and still hit the same quality standard.
Yeah.
Like like it's not that you can't hit the hours.
Mm-hmm.
Like I've done cars in 500 hours. So it's not like it's impossible, but like you can't waste any time.
Mm-hmm.
Like everything has to be in order. You can't sand so part of the purpose was to say like, hey, here's a way you can do the quality and you're not wasting time.
Mm-hmm.
So you have a much better chance of like hitting that quality of work without like you might have an entirely different product or a finished product at the same price, doing it a different way, and it's like you just change the game with how you're doing things without costing more money.
Mm-hmm.
That's not a claim to say you can do this amazing work without, like, it costs money. Like, it's not a magic book of like how to magically do work fast.
Yeah. But it's also making people like more efficient in the sense, like I remember going through, like, I feel like what was every grit of sandpaper to sand the car.
Yeah.
And then you start realizing, oh shit, I don't need to do that.
Yeah. No,
and
you don't.
You explain that.
Yeah.
Like you explain, like, here's the grits that have worked for me that I'm able to speed that up. So if I go from, like, I think you have it as 600 and 1,000.
Yep.
Right? And then 1,000 to 1,500.
Yep.
If I go from 6 to 8 to 1,000 to 12 to 1,500.
Yeah.
What kind of time frame we're talking about?
Yeah.
To do something that you don't need to do.
And you sanded a lot of paint off.
You sanded a lot of paint off.
Yeah, and it's even like when I was at the Roadster shop, it like when we were talking about like learning curves, we agreed to it was going to be an experiment because I wanted to try to figure out like even like the 600,000, 15, 2,000, 2,500. It's a lot of steps.
Yeah.
Like it's like it'd be awesome if we could like
crunch that down.
Yeah. So I tried 800, 1,200, 2,000 and buffed it.
Mm-hmm.
And like everyone, like we were on board with like, this is an experiment. Like, it wasn't going to let it not be nice, but, and it was about the same amount of time.
Mm-hmm.
Like it might have been a little bit quicker, but it was like so much, like it was such big jumps that like it was tough to get it where it needed to be, and like frustrating because like you're sanding forever with each grit to try to get it to get where you want to be. But it was the idea of like, how do we take steps out? Like what's unnecessary? And like that's where all the guide coat stuff comes in, is like you can get 1200 out with 2000 grit. Like it'll do it. You can't miss anything because you're going to be buffing 1200 grit if you miss any. But yeah, like it's like you don't need every step, but you do need some. And usually the reason people add steps is like 1000 can easily take 600 out. Plenty of people will argue that point, but it's all I've ever done. Oh, not all, but like there's plenty of evidence that I can do it. But the problem is people are missing, when they're in 1000 grit, they're missing 600 grit. So there's still some 600 grit scratches left over. And they go to 1500 grit and they're sure as hell not coming out. And then they're just going to say, well, 1000 can't take 600 out. When the fact is, like, all those grits they're going through is like safety nets for things they're missing. So it's things like that like through the years you just learn like what can do what, and like that's where people waste a lot of time, is the steps that seem to serve a purpose. And it's not that they're wrong, it's just like if you can remove 3 wet sanding steps, like that's a big deal.
And then it's which sound like some people listening might be like, but I don't want to compromise. And it's like, are you sure?
Oh, this isn't compromising either.
Well, are you sure that step's necessary?
Yeah, like this shit is not, like this is like that. There's no compromises in skipping steps.
And so it's like that, the efficiency. That's really what we're talking about. Is what is the most efficient way of producing this result? And like there's a long way that might produce that result.
Oh, there's many ways
and
that'll get
there's
there.
a more direct way that doesn't compromise it.
There's even like sanding primer, like we use, which they're the next adventure I want to get into is there's more primer options that I think about, but like polyester is the general one, and we've used vinyl ester, and I actually prefer that, which that's probably a conversation to have with more scientific people. But like it works amazing. Like but they're kind of the same product. They're hard, they're textured, but they build, they're stable. Like, so for a while I started with 80 grit sanding that, and it works. And that's kind of a standard, like an industry standard in the hot rod world. But the problem is you have to add a step because you can't go from 80 to 220. Like maybe you could. That's a huge jump though. So you do have to do like 80 and 180 and then maybe 220 or maybe 320 and then 400, and like minimum you have 4 steps. But 100 grit is easily as good as 80 grit, maybe better because it's a little more fine-tuned. But it allows you to jump to 220. And then you can, from there you can go to 400. So it's like you can skip a step. And again, that's the time thing. So if you're back to that $20,000 budget, like you don't have time to like sand the car one more time in polyester and 2 more times in the clear coat. Like, and there's debates. I've been debating with myself about like what 220 does, and like if a middle step would be beneficial, but I don't know. I really don't think so. I've been like, you can get there with those steps, and it like checks all the boxes. Like it's fast and it's good.
So that's, and the what I like hearing about that is like you're putting that focus on that to go, what can I do to make the entire process more efficient?
Oh yeah, like I like obsessive is an understatement about like thinking about all this. Like
Mm-hmm.
a lot of people start with 120 and there's nothing wrong. You can get there.
Mm-hmm.
But like, first of all, it's slower. Like if you go from 120 in a block to 100 grit on a block and you sand polyester, like it's going to feel painfully slow if you go to 120 and you're used to 100 grit.
Yeah.
So it's slower and it's struggles to get it flatter. So it's a minor difference. 100 to 120 is like not much. But the problem, like where I land at is just this is an example of like the reasoning, and it's not just arbitrary guesses, is the 100's faster, it's more accurate, it gets it flatter, and you have no advantage with 120 grit.
Mm-hmm.
You still have 3 steps. You can't go to 400 from 120.
Mm-hmm.
So you're not saving time. So it's like the grit that I wrote about is, first of all, I've used it a ton, and it's like it meets the boxes of like the quality and the speed.
Mm-hmm.
And like you can do your own thing. Like I don't care. But
you're not saying if you're using 120, your result's going to be
Oh,
horrible.
no, not
You'll
at all.
still produce a nice car. You're just, it's like some of the differences we're talking about are like
it's
a 10%.
Yeah.
Like,
not even like 1%, I would say.
Yeah, like whatever the benefit is, and it's like that might be what you need for that Riddler car or that just really high-end car.
Well, part of the equation is the speed and efficiency.
Mm-hmm.
Like you can get a car blocked out faster with 100 grit than you can 120 grit.
Yeah.
So knock it out and go to the next grit.
Mm-hmm.
And like that's a part of the equation. Like it's not purely quality. It's the quality and the speed.
Mm-hmm.
Like we need to get faster because if you have the process, like you can fly through a car. Mm-hmm. And not all of them. Like I don't want.
Every car's different.
Yeah, I don't want to make it seem like
every car has its own challenge.
I don't want to paint the picture that like you can.
Yeah.
Some of them take months on end, but it's possible to get through something pretty fast. Yeah. At the right level.
What I get out of it, reading the book, listening to you, the stuff that you talk about, the way I look at it is we can create a high-end result and still end up in a reasonable place.
Oh yeah. So like a great example, like I don't necessarily like talking about money with particular projects because it's client, like I don't know. Mm-hmm. It's like talking about other people's money and it's weird. But probably the best project I've ever done, where I think it was like the most efficient I've been, is I was hired to bodywork a 66 Lincoln, and it was a convertible, which helped to be super fair. Mm-hmm. And the car was epoxied, so like I didn't have that portion of it is taken out of the time, which adds up. Yeah. I had to do some metal work to get the gaps right, but I was hired to do the body work and get it ready for sealer. So all the body work, all the trim on it was fit. The gaps were nice. The lines are nice. It was straight. It was 270 hours from bare metal or from epoxy.
Yeah.
Through like ready to go in the booth to seal. This wasn't jams. Like the jams were just getting like sealed and painted. Yeah. Like 270 hours and it's like straight dialed in. Like
it's a big car.
Yeah. But the point is like it's this process, and it's like it's still big budget for some people. Like I'm well aware of that. Yeah. But like it's possible to haul ass through it too. Yeah. Like that didn't need to be a $500 job. And it's as nice as any other car. Yeah. So like that's kind of the perspective of the book, is like it's figuring out like that car has some weird body lines on the top of it, and it's like if you have to do those twice, like you just not blew the budget, but like you're into the 300 hours then. Yeah. And it's like if you do everything once and there's a purpose of the order, like you can just march forward all the time.
Yeah. I think I've seen you talk about this as like your goal, prime that car once.
Yeah. It's tough to do.
It's
like
tough.
To be so like I mean, we do it. Like, it's not, like, that's not at all it's actually rare that I think we've only primed 1 or 2 cars twice at Adam's shop. They get spotted in, but like kind of the idea is like, sure, we're using polyester, but it's really not that much material. And like, you're not fixing anything in polyester, so like you have to get the bodywork right. And yeah, like if you're priming it twice, like so it happens, and like maybe it has its place, but generally speaking, like you should have probably spent a little more time in the bodywork and just get it right.
Yeah. Because I know that might trigger some people, but like, because most shops are probably priming the car 3 times.
Yeah.
And
well, and that goes back to the aluminum stuff. Like that's the thing that it might be received better than it seems like, but like when you hold an aluminum like piece of C channel in the car, like it shows you everything. Like, and I even got to the point where we're putting like fluorescent lights on the floor under it, so you can see light through the.
Oh yeah.
And if you get that right, it's perfect. Like, guaranteed, it's perfect.
Yeah.
And if you're too stubborn to think like, I don't need that, I can feel it. Like, have fun priming 3 times.
Yeah.
But it's the idea of like, it's not about priming it once. It's about like every step needs to be dialed in. And if you get the bodywork dialed in with checking it the right way, and you get to sanding the primer, like you can get it into 400 with a couple breakthroughs.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's like what you're talking about is like, if you got the car from epoxy and I'm going to do my body work on top of that, is like trying to dial in that very first round as tight as you can.
Yeah.
So that after I prime it, maybe I have to hit a panel. Maybe I have to, do something small.
Yeah, there's still spot ins.
Spot ins and stuff like that. But the amount of effort it takes to have to reprime an entire car.
Yeah. Oh, it's tremendous.
The materials that it costs to do that.
And you're back to 100 grit. Like, you've got to get it flat again.
So how much primer, how much polyester, if I polyestered that car 3 times, and I've done it myself, and I think about it, and I'm just like, most of that turned into dust.
Yeah.
It's gone.
Yeah.
Like, and all it did was fill these certain these certain areas that, like we were talking with the splines, I'm going to apply the material I need in this spot right here.
Yeah. Yeah, and those will show you what's going to show up in the primer.
Yeah.
If you use them.
Yeah. So it's like, I don't know if it's the right term, but saying like an economy of effort.
Yeah, I would say.
Right? And trying to tighten everything down. Me reading the book, that's what I get out of it. It's a matter of tightening everything down and understanding these aspects to be more efficient at these things, because otherwise you're going to blow the budget out every time.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, and part of it comes with experience. Like, there's, like, I don't even know. I'd hate to even think of how many hours I've spent sanding filler. And, like, you can't expect to be, like, new at it and just magically it's like, this is how it's done. Like, kind of taking for granted the experience behind it. But the concepts are still there.
Yeah.
And, like, even, like, where to fill something of, like, using those, I mean, you could call them splines too, like, or the splines that he actually sells. It'd be the same concept, but, like, using something to show you, like, you don't just skim a door. Like, figure out where it needs filler and, like, build it up. And, like, if you wipe a door 3 times and block it down, all you're doing is filling the 3 spots that needed filler. Yeah. So, like, fill just those and save yourself a ton of time and effort and, like, get it to the right level by having the right ways to check your work.
Yeah.
And then you just saved a ton of time.
Yeah.
Just like that.
Yeah. Just like that. And I think that the benefit for people, You know, it's easy to kind of say some of this stuff,
Yeah. Oh, it's
but it's backed by the experience, and like now somebody who like somebody who's younger has access to this podcast or your book or your Instagram or Pete's book. I'm sorry, Pete's Instagram, and like they get to hear these things that we had to sit there and develop ourselves painstakingly through what we might consider, well, these were maybe our failures or these were maybe our learning processes, and somebody else can listen to it right now and not necessarily lose the pitfalls that we had, but they get to recognize them before we did.
Yeah. Yeah, well, like a good example that's maybe more tactical for like that example is in the beginning, like it seems obvious to me now, but like I'd bodywork a car, and kind of as I was bodyworking it, I would keep making the body lines nice and dialed in and straight, and gapped it, and like the final gapping with filler before, which in an ideal perfect world that'd all be done in metal and there's no filler and gaps, but that's in 20 years I've never seen a car like that. So, but like the amount of cars I've had to regap and redo the body lines, and realizing like in the book isn't in order for a reason. Like I literally do, the gaps are like the very last thing to do. Like I don't even think about them till, I mean, it's a whole that like you have to address it. But like once they're doing body filler and you know they're in the right spot and you know everything's all right, if you do the gaps twice in filler, like that's a ton of time. So do them once. So like if you're newer at it and you're learning, like sure, it might be easy to talk about like how you fill and block something that's more experience, but like it'd be easier to implement. Like don't do, like it's tempting to want to do the gaps to make them look nice as you're doing the work, but like you're just wasting time. So like do the body work, do the body lines, and then do the gaps, and you're ready to prime. Because if anything changes in your body work, which it will, like pretty for sure, you're going to have to redo the body lines and the gaps. So save it.
Yeah. Well, I think we covered a lot. I think so. There was some pretty solid stuff on this podcast, and like, I'm really stoked that you took the opportunity to come down here and
that's awesome.
You know, hang out. You know, we had fun yesterday. Went out on the water and stuff. But I definitely appreciate people like yourself who are willing to put the information out there to help move the needle, because we need that right now.
Yeah, and even like, I think I make it clear online, but like I have like people can text questions and contact me, and like you do not need to buy anything. Like like I don't even know who's texting me. Like I'm willing to help anyone. It's not like I'm not going to save your number and market to you. Like I just want to help people improve, because the people that care enough to ask questions, like those are the people I want to help. So yeah, anyone's welcome to text or contact or email me, whatever.
What's your Instagram? You know, what's the email? Like, what stuff people can look up for your info?
The Instagram is just Trueblox, BLOX, or it's one word. The email, you can just email info@trueblox.com, and the number to text is 331-303-0703.
Which I'm pretty sure you have it on your Instagram posted on there. So
yeah, I try to. It's out there.
Otherwise, you just gave a phone number out to some guy who's about to be like, what the fuck? I don't know. What are you guys talking about?
Hey, maybe he's a body guy.
Yeah, just give him Jonathan Goolsby's number.
Yeah. That is his number, actually.
Is it? Oh, man. Sorry, Jonathan.
Everyone hit up Jonathan.
But, man, thanks again. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
This is awesome.
Thanks for having me.
And, let's go get some food.
Hell yeah.
I'm hungry right now. So
sounds good.
All right, man. All right. Hey, thanks for listening to the Automotive Artistry Podcast. I'm Miguel, and, hey, I started this podcast to really explore the deeper aspects of our industry, specifically the automotive industry, and specifically the custom side of the industry, but I do more than that too. The the big takeaway that I want you to get out of this is there really is a lot more to all this. Just from the technical side, the mental side, the struggles, the successes that everyone goes through. You don't get to see that on social media. You miss the biggest parts of everything, and I want to bring some reality to all of this. I really love this industry. So I think these conversations might shed some light, might relieve some pressure on you, or you might get a good story that really changes things around. Either way, the point of this podcast, it's to really shed light to what we do. So if you really enjoy the podcast, hey, I'd appreciate it if you'd share it. If there was something you saw, maybe you had a clip or something, tag us in it. You can find the podcast page as Automotive Artistry Podcast. And my personal is Miguel MAPR. And some of you might have seen it already. I've been doing refinisher porn since 2014. And it's a great way for me to share a lot of people in the industry. And it really segued into this podcast. You can find some of my merch at www.refinisherporn.bigcartel.com. And there you'll find the refinisher porn gear, Girls Behind the Gun gear, and eventually there's going to be some automotive artistry podcast merch on there too. So, hey, thanks for listening, and I really appreciate your interest in the Automotive Artistry Podcast.